Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 1 of What If Naruto Had a Beast Quirk and Got Harem with Momo and Kaina. Some male Naruto characters are female in this story, so stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the description box for more details. Now, let's start the story. Revolution. What are you talking about, Sasuke? Naruto nervously. He thought his old friend was past all this revenge crap. It was why Sasuke had joined them in the war against Madara and his forces than against the rabbit goddess Kaguya. With both the man dead and that goddess sealed away, Naruto thought that things would go back to normal. He guessed that was just wishful thinking. So, you intend to go through with it? It was not a question and more of a statement from the being known as the Sage of Six Paths. The sage looked both disappointed and sad at what this version of his transmigrated son, Indra, had turned into. The boy really was angry at the world, and like Indra, he was angry at the sage. It still hurt, even after all these years, but he would still not have chosen any differently. I do, Sasuke started, his eyes roving over the massive beasts, the tailed beast that this entire war had been started to protect, then over to the sage, his teammates, and finally to his ultimate rival, the transmigrate Asura, Naruto Uzumaki. Indra had made sure that the blood feud between the brothers would be forever with the sage watching on haplessly for all eternity. The way this world is, it is wrong. I intend to change it by getting rid of the cages and then fighting the rest of the world if I must. Do you hear yourself, Naruto roared. Just come back and we can figure this out a more peaceful way. Sasuke glared at the blonde. The one person who had been in his way since the beginning. Although he had to admit, this was partially due to the brothers they represented. This world did need to change and he would do it, but Naruto would forever be in his way. Eyeing the beasts again, he came up with an idea. It would free them in a sense. Free the tailed beasts from the humans that just wanted to keep on using them. It would free the sage from watching his sons continue to fight and die over and over again. It would free him of his only friend left to bring revolution and much needed change to this decaying world. I know what I have to do too, but I don't have the strength to do it, Sasuke sighed out in his usual annoyed tone that caught his old friend and teammate off guard. Good. Alone. That seemed to make everyone's skin crawl. What did the last Uchiha plan to do? Sasuke's Rin Sharingan flashed for a moment and the tailed beasts found themselves being suspended in midair. Then to the horror of the sage, their energy began to mix together as they were forced to spin around rapidly. What are you doing? Yelled out a panicked sage, fearful for his creations, his children. Starting my revolution and ending the cycle. I must sever all bonds and get rid of the one person who could stop me. The tailed beasts have suffered enough in this world, so their power will be used to do this. Sasuke drawled out, but one could see the strain on his face. Naruto perked up at this and ran at his friend to put a stop to all of this madness, only for a quick Chidori stream to put a stop to that, stunning the blonde right below the combined energy of the screaming tailed beasts. The energy itself was not enough, it needed direction. Sasuke did not know if this would work or not, but he had seen Kakashi and Obito do the Kamui enough times to be able to replicate it with his new teleportation jutsu. Focusing the power at the point of conversion, Sasuke felt his eye bleed as a highly unstable rift opened in the air and started to suck in the tailed beasts, some of the area around them, and the stunned Naruto himself. After a moment, the sage sighed. Maybe this was for the best. This way, the cycle could end and they could finally rest. But no more pain. No more pain was to be inflicted on his children. Using his own power, he managed to stabilize the rift just as Naruto went through it. Then the tailed beast spirits were taken too, and the rift closed. As he felt himself fading, he smiled. This way, they would survive the ordeal. But this world, he did not know what was going to happen to it now. Maybe that was for the best, but so was making it so Sasuke was not God or the revolutionary he thought he was. All Might, the symbol of peace, stood proudly against a longtime nemesis of his shared quirk. He was the current user for One for All, and he had significantly boosted the All for One was a symbol of terror for all of society. The name was also his quirk because he could steal other quirks all for himself. Normally, he dressed like that of a dapper gentleman, but right now, he was a bloody mess, and some of his blood was staining his white hair. He looked to be losing and through that notion, he was being desperate. He was about to combine many of his combat quirks to deliver a devastating blow to the equally tired hero in front of him, but something strange happened near the alley they were fighting in that made them pause their battle. Both men were still in varying shades of shock and a bit of horror as the night sky lit up like in a light show. Then, it seemed to crack open as a rift appeared. The horror came from 9 faces of various creatures that twisted around the rift in the sky. The black speck dropped the rift as well, not that many would be able to see it, and the creatures rushed towards it like all their lives depended on it as the rift closed like it was never there. It was by far the strangest thing either man had ever seen, and it was All for One that had recovered from the sight first. Looking at All Might, All for One grimaced as he felt pain again, the adrenaline leaving him. But this was his chance, he could take out the symbol of peace. But at what cost to himself? He was already exhausted, bloody, and yup, that pain meant broken bones and some major internal bleeding. Oh god, that hurt. His healing quirks weren't working fast enough. On one hand, his many quirks could get him over there and end this, or at the very least mortally wound the blonde buffin. On the other hand, he thought better of it. Lowering his eyes, he grimaced in pain. All Might, despite the injuries he gave him, still looked ready to go, so there would be no doubt that the man would retaliate harshly. The man did have a heart-on to beat his face in. Then there was also the matter of the boy he had adopted. The possible future replacement body, a leader if he eventually croaked, and a son to mess with All Might. The boy's origins revolved around the Nonishimura, All Might's predecessor. That would eventually break All Might's spirit. All for One chuckled as he snuck away. He was no stranger to failure, he had learned much from it. What was one more? All for One laughed to himself when he heard All Might cry out in shock that he was no longer there. Classic. Kaina Tsutsumi, also known as Lady Nagant, walked along one of the paths in the park she was in. She was a tall woman with a very curvy body, something she sometimes used to get the upper hand on a few of her targets. She was not sure her old friend Midnight would be proud of that fact or horrified given her current profession. Her hair, which was currently tied in a ponytail, was dark blue with pink streaks. She also had purple eyes that were dulled from her last job. Currently, she was in her hero costume, not that she would openly call herself a real hero these days. Her outfit consisted of a simple black bodysuit with two dark green plates underneath her chest and knee guards for protection, but she hardly needed it due to her job needing stealth nearly all the time. Over her right eye, she wore something akin to a scouter from Dragon Ball Z, it really helped her aim with his gun-type quirk. She even had a dark green utility vest of sorts and dark green boots to match. The reason for her despondent attitude was that she was returning from another job that the Public Hero Safety Commission sent her on. Another shit mission all about keeping the peace. Peace, the one they had created, was fragile, and when All Might eventually tired, she doubted that would hold. She did not even believe in it, especially since her employers had groomed her into being the contract killer that she was today. The very thought that they groomed her to be this monster angered her beyond belief. The commission was no better than some old-timey spy agency that thought they could do no wrong, and they were always right. But even she could see the corruption taking place. Kaina hated it, but most of all, she hated herself. She had grown up with light in her eyes, thinking that she would be one of those long-distance heroes that could make a difference. Instead, she was lured to the commission and she chose to work for them. It had been a mistake, a massive lapse in judgment. She did not want this. She did not want to kill villains, and heroes like their lives meant nothing. She wanted to leave the commission, but the president, her boss, was too much of a corrupt hard-ass to ever let her leave. She was just too good at her job. She was trapped with no way out, and it was driving her into a deep depression, one that could eventually drive her mad if she did not get help. There had to be a way out, but for the life of her, she just could not figure out how. Kaina wiped her tears so she could get to her handler with the straight face she was known for, but before she could take another step, the sky above her cracked open in a brilliant and near-blinding flash of light. Followed by the horrible sound of creatures, animals, in pain. It was horrible, and Kaina was not sure she wasn't just going insane from all the stress and guilt. Trying to keep a calm mind about all this, which was very hard mind you, she was able to make out what kind of animals were up in the sky, but some of them just looked odd. A tanuki with strange markings, a freaking blue fire cat, a one-eyed turtle maybe, a red gorilla, a dolphin, a slug, a beetle night thing, a bull, and a red fox with rabbit ears, almost like her old friend Rumi. All in all, there were 9 creatures that she did not know how to help, and it hurt to see these creatures in pain for some reason. Then, to her further horror, something else fell out of the rift. This time something much smaller. She at first strained to see what it was until she used the scope function of her scouter to see that it was a person. A person that was falling at an incredible rate. Wait, that was a child, an unconscious child. What the hell was going on? As soon as the child fell out of the rift, the creatures gained a sense of self again, looking at the boy in concern, until the fox cried out a negative and they all went after the boy, the rift closing behind them. Kaina was not sure what was going on, and at this point, she didn't care. There was a child at risk of dying, and she was going to save them somehow this time, instead of a needless death occurring. Jumping into a nearby tree to climb it, she came to the realization that these trees in the park were not very high at all. No matter, she jumped off it just in time as the boy reached her. This would be a hard drop, but she had to do one good thing, she had to. More light filled her vision, this time from the boy himself, as the light of the rift faded. At first, it was formless as it suspended the two of them in midair with a glow around them. Then it formed into a person with a really strange getup, and she had seen a lot of strange costumes over the years. The person in the light had short spiky hair held up by a headband of some sort. He wore a rather ornate kimono that would be seen as ancient nowadays, with Magatama symbols around his collar. It was all held together by a grey sash. Other than the golden light, there was not much color to him. He seemed to give Kaina a small smile as he lowered them safely to the ground, and it was at this point that she noticed the animals were around them as well, only much smaller than when they appeared, and they all seemed to be worried for the kid instead of themselves. Her expression became baffled when one of them, the cat, spoke. "Well, this is unexpected. I suppose now he can have a proper childhood." The cat muttered before she and the other animals dove into his body, leaving only the glowing man and the angry-looking fox looking right at her. "I can sense the negative emotion rolling off you, woman." The fox growled protectively. "True, but they seem to be directed at herself more than anything." The golden man replied sadly. "Kurama, for now, I feel we can trust her. It seems to me that she needs some light in her life, they could be good for each other. HMPH, I will be keeping my eye on her." Kurama, the fox, muttered, glaring the whole time as he too sunk into the kid's body, which looked to be around 9 years old. "Wait, what is this? Who are you all? Who is the kid? What kind of quirk does all this?" Kaina shouted in panic, the emotions of tonight were really messing with her. "Ah yeah, I figured this would be an issue." The man replied while rubbing the back of his head. "To put it simply, we are from another world entirely. I do not know what a quirk is, but chakra gave us the ability to do this. As for why we are here, this kid just got done fighting in a war for all world, and his old teammate turned traitor used some of the power my dad gave him to start his own revolution by sending this kid away using the beasts you saw. He is my reincarnation of sorts. My dad, who was the sage of Sixth Path and a powerful person, saw what was happening and made sure we all survived the trip. Here I cannot feel him much anymore except for the gift he gave the kid. By the way, the kid's name is Naruto Uzumaki and I am Asura. Please take care of him if you can." His presence does seem to help those who need it, despite his past. Kaina just stared at the man, trying to process all that she learned. War, betrayal, powerful sages, super beasts, reincarnation, it was all a lot to take in, and if she had not seen the rift, she wouldn't be so inclined to believe anything this ghost just said. Oh god, this was giving her a headache. "Allow me." Another voice said before another ghost appeared, and boy, she was beautiful. That red hair was striking. Due to his deeds, the boy is connected to a great many people back in his world. "I am Kushina, his mother. Allow me to show you." Before Kaina could react, Kushina had already pressed a spectral thumb to her mind's eye on her forehead. At first, people began to show up all around her, people only she could see. An armless blonde man that had to be the boy's father, a giant white-haired man, another old man in official-looking robes smoking a pipe and more. They all just came showing up before her world turned white. After a moment, the world came back into view and Kaina found tears rolling down her face. This really was a second chance at a childhood for this boy. He had not been more than 17 from what she had seen of his memories, and what she saw made indignant fury rise in her chest. With the boy's parents dead at birth, his own village treated him poorly, and he helped them no matter what. He had been through so much it was not fair. They groomed him as the commission groomed her, except much worse. Kushina smiled sadly as Kaina hugged her son to her chest, like their lives depended on it, as even more tears flowed, making the woman into a sobbing mess. "Take care of each other, please." "I will." Kaina choked out. As the light faded, she looked sadly at the blonde boy. The boy had been through so much, and he was going to be living a second life here. She would make sure he got a life, and sadly, he was her perfect ticket out of the commission. She would make it up for using him like this, but this way, they would be free to live their lives. Kaina let off a stained smile. She should have known there would have been a catch. The catch in this instance is being All Might's sidekick and bodyguard. Something that neither she, All Might, nor Sir Night-Eye was particularly fond of at first. But this was the price to pay to be able to have a normal life and join All Might's agency. Out of all of them, Sir Night-Eye seemed the most receptive to her, for the man seemed to have been spooked by something. Most likely from one of his visions, and muttering how it didn't happen, showing that not all visions were set in stone. She had an idea as to what it could have been, a possible vision of the future. Before being released, the commission told her the reason they were sending her to the man. Basically, because the man almost died to his longtime nemesis, All for One, and the fact that even they noticed that All Might was getting weaker and slowing down. He had been the number one for over 30 years, and the fact that they did not even know his age was concerning. The man had to step down eventually, he was not immortal after all. So, the Might Agency, All Might himself briefed her on what really went on, and that strange smile became a genuine one. On the inside, that smile was devious because she was never going to report this info to the commission ever. Her revenge on them was going to be little inconveniences until they collapsed in on themselves. It probably would not work, but let her have her fun. Now that she was part of their inner group, a lot of it made sense. All Might's friends were good people who were looking out for the meathead, and he was indeed a meathead, something that freaking David Shield often joked about all the way from My Island. It was rather humorous. Then there was the tiny old man Gran Torino, that little guy was a freaking menace, and he trained All Might, yikes. She could certainly see the mental scars that little old man left on All Might. The man was still afraid of his teacher. Then there was the rather boring detective, but he was a good man, and from what she read, he was damn good at his job. It made sense to have a cop for on call and a good friend. Another surprise was Principal Nezu, that creature smart as hell but also unhinged. That made sense since he had been experimented on. Next was the famous recovery girl, who acted as a personal doctor to the hero. Finally, was Sir Night-Eye himself. His future sight really was amazing, but he could be rather stiff for someone that demanded people smile and laugh all the time. He was also a strange fanboy of his boss. It seemed All Might surrounded himself with people that were smart and kept an eye on him. Then there was herself. Kaina would keep the man and his quirk safe and secret. She also considered herself smart, and the man's quirk was troubling. All for one accidentally made it, and the users passed it down, gathering power. With All Might using it so well, it felt dangerous to give to anyone else. That build-up felt unreal, and when she shared that with them, a grim outlook passed through the group because they all agreed. They had to be very careful when the time came for the transference. While All Might looked for an eventual successor and did his hero job with much zeal, she would help protect the big lug. She owed it to both her new son and the Might Agency for getting out of her old life and out of her depression. She just could not help the strained smile that kept crossing her face at the man's antics in public. That, and she had not dealt with the public in a while, but the man promised to help her with that. Izuku Midoriya looked at the new kid a few rows in front of him before looking over to his best friend, Hitachi Shinso, who just gave a non-committal shrug. That was not uncommon for his friend to not have an opinion. He was very introverted and did not care for a lot of people. It was a miracle that they even became friends, but the common ground of people not really caring for them helped in that department. Izuku's hobby was knowing about all quirks, how they worked, and knowing about the goings-on of heroes. Yes, he was kind of a nerd, so 9-year-olds did not see the value in that, along with the fact that he was quirkless. At least they were not all against his very existence like his childhood friend who made it his life goal to torment and turn everyone in his old school against him. You cannot help genetics. Itachi sadly understood that last part more than anyone. People were afraid of him because of his so-called villainous quirk brainwash. Too bad people did not see the use of such a quirk like Izuku. It was perfect for crowd control and rescue heroes. The fact that not all men were created equal rang true for both of them. Still, Izuku was glad that he convinced him that his quirk was amazing and that they should be friends. They formed their own friend group, which was great because it was hard making friends, especially if your social skills are not great. However, Izuku being Izuku wanted to see what the new kid was all about. He would see at lunch. When Naruto first woke up in this new world, he felt that something was off. He was right, as when he had first entered his mindscape, Kurama was different. Connected to his tail were his brothers and sisters. It seemed that Sasuke's rift had done a lot more damage than they thought. The rift had used their energy to work, and the only reason why none of them, Naruto included, were dead was the Sage of Six Path used the last of his power to save them. Being a 9-year-old again was a small price to pay compared to what the tailed beasts were going through. The rift had used up most of the energy that made them them. In a sense, they turned themselves into leeches and connected themselves to him. It was crazy to think about. Kurama still had half his energy, the yang half, while his yin half barely survived the ordeal, and it was why the other beasts clung to him, but even Kurama had been harshly affected by the rift. Kurama himself now clung to Naruto like a lifeline. The reason? They were all finding it very hard to regenerate their energy in this world. Maybe they just had to get used to it and somehow integrate with it. The humans of this world did not rely on chakra, and the nature chakra here felt different as well, so they could not rebuild from that right away. Naruto did ask about it, but Kurama just brushed him off, telling him that they would be fine. Naruto was not fooled though, he could tell when his longtime friend was troubled. It was why he was allowing the beasts to take what chakra they could from him. The next issue was his new mother. It was not really an issue, Kaina seemed great, but she had pain in her eyes that he had seen in himself and old friends. Friends he would never see again. Starting over was going to be hard, but at least he was not going to be alone this time. And apparently, Kaina saw his birth mother, Kushina, and informed her of his past, along with the weirdness of his original spirit, Asura. That weirdness was something he would never get used to. Especially now that he had both the sun and moon symbols on his palms and ghosts were involved. A last parting gift from the sage. The only thing is, he had to go to therapy alongside her. They both had issues they needed to work past, him being groomed to be a weapon for his village and being in a war while she had been groomed to be an assassin, something she never wanted. She had a friend that also worked at some hero school, so they went there. Speaking of heroes, this world was a strange one indeed. Going from one world with a hidden village system for ninjas to a world where being a hero was the profession of choice. It did not make a whole lot of sense. Chakra was traded for quirks of all sorts. The constant war between villages was traded with constant fights between heroes and villains, with some people being villainized for small things, like using their quirk in public if they were not a hero. All of it both made sense and not at the same time. Okay, everyone but a small percent had some form of powers like a bloodline or the beginnings of one it seemed, but people were still people. They would want to flaunt what makes them special and unique. So why not rework professions to accommodate these quirks and make jobs easier? Having only heroes being able to use their quirks was flawed logic and the reason there are so many villains. It was maddening. Kaina agreed with him on this, but there was not a whole lot that could be done at this point, thanks to organizations like the Hero Public Safety Commission, basically controlling things as they were and forcing people like her to keep the peace by getting rid of people that caused them problems. It reminded Naruto too much of Danzo's Root organization. Something had to be done about that, but he was not sure what to do or if he wanted to. Besides Kaina, he did not have anyone to protect and did not have much of a purpose. It did not feel good. It was why she sent him to this elementary school. To help him make friends and see what he could do with his life here. At first, he thought it was going to be like the academy back home, boring and everyone against him. It was not so, the teachers did not sabotage his learning and these kids were nice. Some of them had interesting quirks that the teachers allowed them to somewhat use in their off time. Also, what he had learned in the academy had been a bit more advanced than what he was learning now. It was crazy, but he picked up a few things that allowed him to correct the missing and incorrect parts of his old education. Maybe it would not be so bad here. Wearing any type of uniform sucked though. Hey, do you mind if we sit with you for lunch? A nervous-looking green-haired kid as he and another kid stood off to the side. When Naruto looked at them, nervous whispering began around the class. Whispers about how the other kid with purple hair was just controlling the greenette into talking for him. Weird. Naruto raised an eyebrow and let an easygoing smile cross his lips. Since coming to this world, he felt a lot calmer, especially since he was getting the help he needed. There were still episodes, but he was working on it. If you do not mind dealing with a new kid, that is fine with me. I am Naruto Uzumaki, but call me Naruto. None of that last name crap. The purple-haired kid snorted at that as he sat down in a nearby desk that someone took issue with. Careful Naruto, that is Hitachi Shinso, he has a villain quirk and he will just brainwash you. Hang out with us instead of a future villain and his quirkless lackey. The random and unremarkable brown-haired kid said cautiously. At first, Naruto just wanted to lash out a scream at the kid to shut up, but that had never worked in the past. Talk no jutsu surprisingly worked before a lot of times in the past, and now that he was trying to be calmer, he might as well change tactics. Powers aren't inherently evil, it's the person and the intentions behind the power you need to learn about beforehand, Naruto stated with a frown directed at the boy. The statement also seemed to quiet the class as they contemplated this. Some even gained a pensive look. Before you all judge someone based on a power from a genetic lottery, get to know them. Has this tired-looking kid ever done anything to hurt you, especially with his power? Naruto asked further. Well no he hasn't but he could. The brown-haired kid argued. Stop relying on the what-ifs. That is how you get a self-fulfilling prophecy. Naruto shouted back, some of his old self's anger boiling through, making the brown-haired back up. This was hitting too close to home for him, and he heard that mutant-type quirk users get the same treatment he used to as a kid, and it made his anger rise. Accept them for the way they are. Your irrational fear is what creates these villains in the first place. Now the rest of the class was reflective as they left to head to the lunchroom. They had a lot to think about and maybe apologize for. As they were leaving for the lunchroom, they all heard Naruto compliment Hitachi, saying it could be useful for both rescue situations and for crowd control with people get too rowdy. The displaced blonde may not like it, but he was already changing things. Hitachi let off a small smile as the three of them sat down for lunch. Izuku had already told him that his quirk was amazing, but the kid was obsessed with quirks and he was his friend. To hear it from a complete stranger, that was something else. He was glad Izuku suggested they talk to the new kid because they gained a new friend. However, the way he spoke, it was like the new kid had experience with this sort of situation. It was concerning. Thanks for standing up for me, no one but Izuku usually does, but they don't take him seriously all that often because he had confidence issues and the fact that he is quirkless, Hitachi replied, a bit bitter, especially when other lunch tables were leaning in to hear them talk. Most do not take to the idea of being controlled all that great. The only ones that do are my parents and it is exhausting. My mom asks me to control her because she has no motivation to clean the house, and dad has trouble getting to sleep because he is overworked. His mind is still going a mile a minute, so when I have to control both at the same time, it is so exhausting. Both Izuku and Naruto stared at Hitachi for a moment before chuckling a bit. That explains the eye bags now, Naruto replied while scratching the back of his head. Seems that all powers have a backlash of some sort. But it is no issue, I hate pointless discrimination. And Izuku. Yeah? Izuku pipped up, a bit on guard like something was going to happen to him. It made Naruto worried because the people around here seemed to steer clear of him. Was Izuku like him? Some sort of transfer that had a rough life before. I will not look down on you just because you have no powers. Despite the anxiety I see on your face, you seem strong-willed to be able to put up with people's crap. Naruto said, making both Izuku and Hitachi look at him with wide eyes. As Naruto took a bite out of his sandwich, he continued. Besides, if people thought about it, they are going to have to learn self-control, especially if they can't make it as heroes, because they won't be able to use their quirks at all. You know, that law about keeping powers in check to create a sense of normalcy. I hadn't thought of that. Izuku whispered as murmurs from other tables became frantic. I doubt many people do and they get labeled as so-called villains, Naruto replied in a somewhat bitter mocking voice, his distaste for how this world operated already bothering him more than he would like to admit. Living would be easier if people were allowed to use their powers in their everyday jobs. You keep saying powers. Izuku pointed out after a moment. We are so used to calling them quirks that not many people say powers in this context. By the way, what is your quirk? After that, he took out a blank notebook from somewhere. He even had an excited look on his face. Naruto snorted. Bad habit. He could be calling all these pseudo-bloodlines if he wanted to. I wouldn't consider my power set a quirk. I use chakra to manipulate the environment around me. Chakra? What is that? Hitachi asked with a small amount of amusement as Izuku furiously began writing in his notebook. Normally, the energy in our bodies isn't visible, but mine is. Naruto replied with a shrug as he lifted his hand before lighting up with his blue chakra, the energy giving off the effect like it was on fire. Whoa. Izuku shouted in excitement and stars in his eyes. Yeah, by weaving hand signs, I can mold it to commend the elements or do shape manipulation as so, Naruto commented as he formed his famous Rasengan, but it felt weaker, which sadly made sense now that he was younger again. As the ball of swirling energy disappeared, Izuku noticed something else as he wrote in his notebook about the supposed versatility of Naruto's quirk. There are so many applications to this energy manipulation you have, but what about your eyes? What you mean? Naruto asked, suddenly still. He means as you release that chakra whatever, your eyes changed. Like it gained rings, it is weird to look at. Hitachi replied with a shrug. Sure, it was weird, but his mom had swirls for eyes to go with her hypnosis quirk. Secretly, she uses it for patients with insomnia. Are rings? Naruto asked as he began to panic a bit. Are they purple? No, they stuck with the normal blue of your eyes. Izuku supplied. Oh, Naruto said, not knowing how to reply to this new information. Did he have the Rinnegan somehow that would explain the moon tattoo? Did the sage really give up his power like that? Did what Sasuke had done anger the sage that much? Thinking quickly, he said out loud, I need a mirror. I got one. A passing blonde girl with pigtails chirped happily as she took it out of her purse. Wait, I want to try something. Naruto said, thinking for a moment, trying to remember what Nagato did. As he lifted his hand outward, the words came to him. Universal pull. The girl leaped as the mirror flew from her hand and into his. Ooh-oh. Naruto groaned out in shock as he opened the compact mirror, see a pair of blue Rinnegans staring back at him. Naruto, that is amazing. That is almost like my mom's telekinesis. Izuku shouted in amazement and joy. But you don't look happy about it, Hitachi noted as Naruto gave the mirror back to the girl, who then left in a hurry. It is because I know what these eyes are, it runs in my family, and most of the ones that had it were not the best of people, Naruto replied bitterly, thinking of Nagato before he changed and then died, Madara, Kagaya, and then Sasuke. In the end, the sage and Nagato near the end of his life were the only good people with these eyes. Then you will just have to prove to yourself that the eyes are not as evil as you think. Remember, quirks aren't inherently evil, Hitachi said, parroting Naruto's earlier words. It is the people using them, Naruto replied with a sardonic smile. Thank Hitachi. Oh my god, this chakra manipulation quirk is amazing. Izuku ranted as smoke rose from the notebook he was writing as if it would catch fire at any moment. As he furiously wrote, the two boys became slightly unnerved as he muttered out loud. Using it to manipulate the elements can be very versatile, but at what extent does this versatility reach? Are there elements that it can't twist to the user's whims? With the shape manipulation he just performed, what else does that mean he could do with just the energy itself? What was that swirl ball and what does it do? Do the ringed eyes represent the height of his family's power with being able to manipulate something as difficult as a fundamental force of the universe and gravity? What else do they allow him to do? Izuku, you're smoking again, Hitachi replied tiredly. The boy's rapid mind was going past the limits of his body to the point he wrote so fast that it was causing friction burns and smoke to come out of his ears. It was both funny and exhausting at the same time. His dad was almost the same way. Any risk to cause that to get worse? Naruto chuckled. You just gestured to all of me. Izuku pouted. My family can do unique things because we usually specialize in certain elements, Naruto replied with a fond smile on his face, remembering all the ninjas that did amazing things with chakra, bloodline limit or not, they were all amazing. Things like manipulate wood, paper, crystals, fire so hot it mummifies people, boiling hot mist, lava, ice to name a few. Me on the other hand, I found my unique use for it. After passing into this world that is. What is it? Hitachi asked so Izuku did not have an aneurysm from too much excitement. Naruto smirked as his chakra flared a bit, causing 2 fox ears to replace his normal human ones, along with a long fox tail. My favorite animal is a fox, now I have a real connection to them. Heh, with the power of Genjutsu on his side, he could do this now. He liked heteromorphic quirks and felt a kinship with them. Wow, so you can hide your heteromorphic traits unlike most with animal-based quirks. Izuku replied, going off on a tangent again. You get used to it, Hitachi replied in an almost resigned sort of way, but he still had a small smile for his friend. Izuku may be quirkless, but he is a certifiable genius. Even if he could not make it into the hero track like everyone else wants to be, he could still help the heroes in both minor and major ways. That got Izuku's attention back on track as he listened in. With jobs like firefighters and cops being a thing for minor help to major things like the support and business courses at UA. They learn to make support items, costumes, and manage heroes, so they become famous. I have been so stuck on being a hero I didn't even think about those options. Izuku replied with a wide-eyed blink. Naruto chuckled again at this, memories of friends bubbling to the surface. One-track mind, huh? I knew a few people like that, myself included. But I had a family member that was quirkless, just like you, Izuku. At this, the 2 boys paid more attention, especially when Naruto became glassy-eyed. It hit them that Naruto spoke about his old family and friends in the past tense. As if something happened to them all. Lee did not let that stop him though, and neither did his teacher. Guy did not rely on his quirk, so he was the perfect teacher for him. They learned to use martial arts to fine-tune their bodies, and even used martial techniques to be on par with everyone else, despite not using their quirks. Even if one of the techniques burnt up Guy's body as he attempted to save everyone. That is amazing, Izuku replied hesitantly in quiet awe. Maybe I can do that too. I am sure you can, you just have to be a genius of hard work. With your brain, I am sure you can do it. Naruto chuckled to himself at his little inside joke. He looked down a bit, his smile fading before he looked back at them and an air of nostalgia coming off his new smile. He didn't acknowledge that his face was wet though. You know, you two remind me of another friend, just split apart. Shikamaru was his name and all he wanted to do was lay down, sleep, and go cloud watching. Hitachi, you are like his lazy side with your constant tiredness. Izuku, you are like him and the rest of his family, geniuses. And Naruto, you're crying. Izuku shyly said. Izuku was used to crying, he got it from his mom, but seeing the new kid crying as if he didn't know what he was doing was jarring, and it hurt to see. Naruto looked like too strong of a person for that. That just proved to him that even the strongest people were hurting. Huh? Naruto asked as he wiped the tears with his hand, but they kept on flowing. He did not even cry all that much when he recounted his early years with his therapist. So, I am. Itachi looked uncomfortable at this, even as other tables looked guilty for eavesdropping. I hate to ask this, Naruto, but what happened to your family? He asked, knowing this would bite him in the ass one day. The growing look of mixed emotions crept on Naruto's face as the reality of it all finally hit him. Horror, sadness, depression, and resignation all mixed into one. Sasuke sent him away before he could stop his teammate. That meant the world was still under the eternal Tsukiyomi Jutsu. Everyone was still trapped in those cocoons as their chakra was siphoned away. It meant that Sasuke had started his revolution by killing Granny Tsunade in the other cage. It meant that we're all dead. Everyone is gone, even the village. Naruto looked at the tears in his hand, at the 2 boys giving him panicked yet pitying looks, then back at his hand. He worked out that the reason for his crying now instead of earlier was that he did not really miss the village that wanted nothing to do with him. He missed all the friends he made. He missed his found family. Excuse me. He let out before he ran to the rooftop of the school, wanting to be alone. Nobody said a word. Miko Toga was not prepared for today. When she woke up, she expected everything to be normal. Just like her parents wanted for her. Her parents, she secretly hated them for forcing her to not react with her quirk, and each day it was getting worse. She was the perfect girl her parents wanted, but it was getting to her. Her quirk made her crave blood, to drink it like a soda, and go on with her day. Why did her parents have to be so close-minded? She saw people drinking ink once for their quirk, so why couldn't she drink blood? Because it was the lifeblood of other people, it made sense, but it was maddening, and even though she knew this would not last forever, she would snap eventually. Maybe sooner, because today was different. Every little thing was going wrong this morning, and then at school, they were all thrown for a loop with a new kid in class. It was not every day that they got someone new at Nabu Elementary. Usually, parents wait until the beginning of the school year, not the middle. He wasn't an idiot though, he was smart like the Midoriya kid. He made everyone open their eyes regarding so-called villainous quirks. It made everyone feel bad for avoiding and making fun of the Shinso kid. Not that she ever participated in making fun of him, because she would be a hypocrite thanks to her own quirk. Admittedly, the new kid was cute, but she was not sure he was her type. Still, being the perfect girl her parents wanted her to be dictated that she talked to cute boys, but when he suddenly asked for a mirror with a panicked look and then made the mirror fly out of her hands. Seeing the panic in his ringed eyes set something off in her. The same panic she felt when dealing with her own quirk when it brought those urges back, but the agreement with Shinso and Uzumaki that it was not the quirk that made people evil, it was how they acted. Then came the bomb that he was alone in this world with maybe someone adopting him after that happened. He left to deal with his feelings, and understandable so. Now here she was, cracking at that broken-hearted look he had. Her carefully constructed facade of normal was cracking all because of one bad day and the pain of another. She hoped to fix this by going to her usual spot and being alone for a while. Get back into the state of mind that helps her be normal. That spot was the roof, and it turned out that her fellow blonde had the same idea. She saw him staring at the sky as the tears streamed down his face. It did not look right and broke her just a bit more. Idly she wondered if she was an empath, if this was affecting her this much. Another thought popped into her head as she stood there frozen to her spot at the door. Usually, guys were violent when dealing with emotions, so why, oh wait, there was a dent in the roof with blood. Blood. Oh no, there was a bit of blood there, triggering her quirk just a bit to rattle her. Eyes searching, she found the source on his knuckles, and the smell was enticing, but she shook her head. Freak out about the blood later, keep it together. He needed someone. Still, the blood was triggering her quirk, and she found herself holding her breath as she reached out for him, and boy did he jump high in the air when she touched his shoulder, as if he didn't hear her coming. Weird. Naruto nearly shouted and almost reached for a hidden kunai that he had on his person, but saw that it was the girl that gave him the mirror to use. She looked at him in concern, and there was an odd blush on her face, especially when she quickly eyed the blood on his hands when she thought he was not looking. He wiped the tears off to get a better look and saw a face he saw many times before back where he grew up in the red light district in Konoha. It was jarring to see on a girl this age, his new age. God, that was weird. Oh, mirror girl. Thanks again for that assist. No problem. Himiko started. I was actually going up here to sort out a few things myself, but I saw the state you are in. Are you going to be okay? I will eventually, Naruto admitted. It is just hard to be the only one left. Yeah, I could not imagine, Himiko admitted with a grimace. She wanted to help, but this was beyond her. Sure, my parents and I don't get along, but I couldn't imagine them gone. I am Himiko Toga, by the way. Call me Himiko. I am not a fan of using everyone's last names for everything. It can lead to weirdness. Sure thing, Himiko. Naruto let off a soft chuckle as he led them to a nearby bench to sit and talk. Can I ask you about your quirk? I promise I won't judge. Again, Himiko grimaced. That was a common topic of conversation, and she usually dodged hers. Something about him though made her want to speak the truth of what she had. Look, my quirk is not for the faint of heart. It lets me transform into other people, but the cost is I have to have their blood. As in I drink it, and the craving is always there. So I suppress it, just like family my wants. All to stay normal. My guess is that your quirk manifested at a bad time, and instead of your family accepting this new side of you, they rejected it. Naruto asked softly, making Himiko nod sadly. Naruto shook his head. If it helps, I will be your friend and you can be yourself around me all you want. I'll even help you with your quirk and we can figure out a way to make it livable. Himiko felt tears form at the corner of her eyes. Naruto was going through so much right now and some villain destroyed his old life. But he was willing to help her. Just like that. It made her heart ache because he was putting others before himself. Before his own grief. What about you though? You are going through so much. Naruto gave off a small and sad heartbreaking smile. It was something she saw that came naturally to him and it hurt to see. This is my way of getting past it. I focus on others, on new friends. This is devastating, but I can get through this, I just need people that care in my life. If that makes sense. And if these new friends disappeared as well, he would be broken and alone again. No, she wouldn't let that happen. If he was offering himself as a friend, then she needed to make sure she was worth having as a friend. Naruto, we wanted to make sure you were okay, oh my god. Izuku shouted in panic as he and Hitachi opened the door to the roof, only to find Naruto and the blonde girl from earlier sitting on a bench, looking like they were having a heart-to-heart. With Himiko glaring at them for interrupting, it was pretty intimidating for the meek boy. Look, I wanted to apologize for saying anything insensitive. We didn't realize you were going through a hard time. Hitachi replied tiredly, but he really meant it. A rough time? No doubt. Himiko grumbled before she remembered that these two were his new friends too. Inwardly, it made her smile. The new kid already had a few new friends, it seemed he was a natural at that. Now it was their turn. We can talk quirks with the Walking Dead and the Quirk Professor later. We can help each other in that department later, but right now, allow us to be there for you. Allow us to help you, please. Naruto looked from Himiko to Hitachi to Izuku. They all looked worried for him and really wanted to help. His old friends back in Konoha helped when they could by just being there. Now these people wanted to be included. I can't tell you everything about my past, you wouldn't believe me. He replied nervously. Not a big deal, man, Hitachi replied, standing next to him. We'll be here for you. Izuku replied. Himiko just put a hand on his shoulder and smiled encouragingly. Naruto smiled back at them all as he felt the tears fall. This would mark the day they all became friends. The bond forged here would be strong. Sure, they would be late coming back to class, but they did not care. No one in the school blamed them. Kaina was actually happy. No more depression weighing her down, and she was even proud to smile in front of kids who look at her with stars in their eyes. She could attribute that last part to her working with All Might out in the open. He had called her out into the open so many times that it was becoming useless to stay hidden. Now she only stayed hidden because it freaked out the man's opponents, and she gained a bit of dark humor, watching them unravel as they watched out for her shots alongside All Might's massive fists. Speaking of the man in tights, she found herself relaxing quite a bit around the older man, something he actually admitted he knew, but it was nice to hear. She even helped him rest when he obviously needed it. It was nice to have friends to talk to for once. Of course, the public saw differently, and it was a little concerning to her that people were shipping them in the tabloids. And speaking of dark humor, Sir Night-Eye had the weirdest reaction to that. He thought it was both hilarious and he approved. He often teased them about it. The gull. She still had not even considered that type of love in her life. After all, she was recovering from her depression caused by the many government-sanctioned hits she had committed, but she was happy just being out in public again and having a son to raise. He was damaged just like her, but they made it work. To say that Naruto didn't need a parent was harsh. He had grown up without one and then got turned back into a kid. He needed someone older in his life and she was doing her best. She was also very glad he was making friends. Judging from his memories, he did have quite a few, and seeing him with more put a smile on her face. But right now, she was debating on going through with an idea Sir Night-Eye had that would involve Naruto and the goings-on in Naruto. That man seemed obsessed with trying to find a clue as to what was going on with the quirk-enhancing drug called Trigger. Speaking of the drug, she wasn't sure if there would be any adverse effects to it if it was on the normal market. People with weak quirks would love a chance to be a hero and do some good. The problem now though was there was a new version of Trigger that caused instant villains or victims if you spoke to the people of Naruto. The victims lost their minds on Trigger. That was what her old contact in the area said anyway. Something on your mind, I mean mom? Naruto asked while correcting himself. Kaina smiled at that. Naruto was making a conscious effort to call her mom, and that made her happy. I have been thinking about what you said, how people should be free to use the quirks, even if it was just for their professions. Thanks to your memories, I have an idea of how it could go in our more modern times, but it wouldn't fly. At least not right now. You would have to get the commission's eyes on you along with the government and maybe other organizations. To do that you'd have to be a hero. In other words, I have to be this world's version of a shinobi and try to get to be picked as the Hokage or the #1 hero here. Naruto grumbled as they walked through the halls of Might Tower, since technically, his mom was still on the job. I know you are tired from your time as a shinobi, but it is currently the only legal option I can think of. I know you can't see yourself as this world's version of a villain. Kaina said, smiling at the boy. Naruto snorted at that. He had fought against some big-time villains in his time, so no, he was not into that villain shit. If I did that, I'd have to get back into fighting shape. True, and that is what hero high schools are for. Kaina stated with a grimace, but I also know that option is too slow even for you. That is why I am going to pull a few strings for you. How so? Kaina smirked, but the smile did not reach her eyes. My time working for the commission has provided a few options through contacts. Not to mention they are good friends now. Peeking out of the corner of her eyes, she saw Naruto frown at the mention of the people who made her life a living hell, but he was curious and wasn't objecting, so progress. There is a certain bunny-themed hero who is making her way up the hero rankings, but she still runs a certain side business. In short, Rumi has always been battle crazy and she has caused many an issue with underground arenas. However, with her leading one herself, all in an effort to be able to find a person in the world to fight, I think it could work out for you. Plus, that frog kata you learned would be put to good use. A hero running an illegal underground fighting arena, that is pretty funny. Naruto snarked out, but he was not saying no. Another option I can think of is partially the idea of Sir Night Eyes and mine combined. He wants someone to go to Naruto to help out the vigilantes in dealing with Trigger. That drug that makes people go berserk? Naruto asked with a frown. What does the big meathead think of that idea? Oh, he hates it, even if he sees the merit it has in helping people. Kaina immediately said, already on the same wavelength as her son. That is why we won't tell him if you decide to go. I have an old contact in Naruto, a city in Tokyo, that is tracking things as they go while trying to find his daughter all the while without Quirk. Impressive for this world. Must be a tough son of bitch. Naruto commented with a growing grin. But he is, and he is looking to teach the ropes to this one college kid he found, who is also a vigilante. Could be a good jumping in point. Kaina started with a knowing grin. Let me think about it and I will get back to you after school. I want to meet them though. Naruto replied after a moment. I can arrange that. Naruto snickered to himself as he watched his group interact with a new member in the form of Mei Hatsume during lunch. The pink-haired girl really was something else, and she easily matched Izuku in terms of intelligence. He also could see it was exhausting Hitachi more than it should, but that boy was just looking out for them. Like them, Mei was sort of an outcast that people were starting to pay attention to. However, Mei was so far into her own little world that it was difficult to pull her out of it. He read, somewhere, that her type of personality trait was supposed to be on something called the spectrum. He would have to read more on that later. For now, he just wanted to get to know her like he had for his friends. Wait, Mei, you said you wanted to create babies for heroes? Naruto asked, fully putting himself in the conversation and already being thrown for a loop. Yeah, what I call my babies, I meant gadgets. I create machines in my free time, which is all the time in my opinion. Mei replied with a shrug. But Mei, Izuku started with some exasperation in his voice, since he was the one to bring her to the group. She was alone and looked very tired. He had to do something. Some things we learn here will be beneficial knowledge-wise to your future inventions. Not to mention making time for food and rest will help too. I suppose that makes sense, and some amount of socializing will help me eventually get business contracts. Mei reasoned. Fine, I will join you and your friends at lunch and go from there. That was probably as good as they were going to get for a while. Izuku grinned tiredly, so Mei wants to be able to invent any gadget she wants and then sell them to heroes. She'd be great for the support course at UA. That is where I intend to go. Mei grinned. Yup. Izuku chirped before looking at his friends. It was nice to see that he had friends now after his early years were messed up because his childhood friend had an ego the size of Texas and made everyone hate him. You know, Mei and I should both go into the support course route. With my analysis, I could help Mei create even greater things. I figured you were going for the hero course, Mei replied with a confused expression. I heard that is what you wanted to do. But I am quirkless. So? There are a lot of heroes with useless or minor quirks. They make up for it by training their bodies. I would have a protein shake for people like that if it didn't explode. Mei replied quickly. What was that? Hitachi asked nervously, already having a feeling that dealing with her was going to be a headache. Nothing. Mei chirped nervously. See Izuku, you could be a hero if you wanted. You just got to train up that skinny body of yours. Himiko replied with a giggle. She is right, Naruto stated as a question popped into his head. Why do you want to be a hero though? When we watched All Might as kids, seeing him saving people with a smile on his face. I wanted to do the same while Bakugo wanted to, just so he could be the best. Izuku explained while revealing some of his own past. Naruto assumed this Bakugo person was the kid that made Izuku into the nervous wreck he is today. Yeah, and I want to be a hero to prove the quirks aren't inherently villainous. Hitachi stated. I guess I am in a similar state of mind, Himiko replied with a shrug. My parents don't accept my quirk, so I want to prove that it is not bad for them. What about you, Naruto? Naruto frowned as he thought about it. These kids wanted to be heroes and prove they were useful to the society. Izuku just wanted to be a decent person and save people because that was how he was taught and that was how the world worked, even when they both knew that most heroes just wanted money and fame. Mei wanted to support heroes with her gadgets and keep making them as she pleased. Himiko and Hitachi had quirks that people labeled as bad, but even Himiko's own parents did not accept her for something that was a part of her. What did he want? Did he want to keep on fighting after the old fight was for nothing? Truthfully, he wanted peace like his old master wanted, but he did enjoy a battle every now and then. If he had to fight again, he wanted peace. Not just for him, but for his new friends and family too. I want to be a hero to change the world and bring real peace to it. Where people are accepted for who they are. Whoa. Hitachi and Izuku replied under their breaths while Mei grinned, already excited to make him some gear. It was Himiko that was different. She walked over and hugged him tightly. She had told him about her home situation, and she was happy that his hero goal was to help people like her. So, how should we go about it? Wait, why are you asking me? Naruto asked with a bewildered look. You really have to ask. Hitachi replied with a smirk because they were getting under his skin. You're our leader. Izuku nonchalantly replied, clearing things up. Seriously? Naruto asked. He did not even lead his old team and none of the other teams he had been on. He had been rather immature, he'd have to admit. Did these kids really trust him that much since coming to this school? Apparently. Now he really had to be stronger than them to be their protector. Which meant he had to take his mom's offer. That was fine. Well, we would have to work on ourselves. Izuku, because you are quirkless, that means you will have to work harder than everyone. Are you prepared to do that? Naruto asked. I can do it. Izuku replied with determination shining in his eyes. I will work hard, just like your friend Lee. Just as long as you don't start spouting off about the power of youth, we'll be fine. Naruto commented, making them look at him oddly. He would do that every now and again, but brush it off as his old friends being weird. Too bad we don't have tools with which we can learn to use as well. Hitachi commented. Tools? You mean like weapons or gadgets? Naruto asked as he started to remember his ninja pouch while looking at the seal on his wrist. Both. Hitachi replied a bit unsure. That would make sense. Use anything to make a difference. Naruto stated, Izuku, I think for now, we all need to learn a fighting style. As for tools, he activated the seal on his wrist. In a puff of smoke, they all looked owlishly at the plain-looking ninja pouch that just appeared. Well, that was until Izuku started furiously writing again in the notebook. What is that? What did you do? Mei and Himiko shouted excitedly. The seal that my family was known to do. I just know the basics though. The storage seal lets me do that in a small pocket dimension. Naruto commented while showing them the small seal on his wrist. Basic, he says. I call hacks. Hitachi groaned, already seeing the potential of it. He cringed though when Mei started laughing insanely that she needed to make something like that. Izuku, I am sure you have analyzed us and our quirks. What would you recommend for us? Also, we can do costumes later. Naruto said. Well, I know I would need a lot of protection, and I will need to figure out a weapon for myself later. Izuku started while the others eat quietly. Mei, I think could use a pair of goggles that work in conjunction with her eyes to see really small and far away things. Could be useful for electronics. Maybe create an all-purpose tool like from this really old show called Doctor Who. I think it was called the sonic screwdriver. That way you do not have to keep reaching for something new and you can keep it on you most of the time in case of on-the-spot fixes. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Mei replied with wide eyes. Everyone needs a different perspective for things like that. Naruto replied with a smile that Mei mirrored. Let's see Hitachi. Izuku said as he turned a page in his notebook. With your quirk revolving around your voice, I think a voice changer and amplifier will be your main thing. After that, I can think of 2 other items for you. One is a possible capture weapon and the other world is darts. Darts? Hitachi asked. I get the capture weapon for capturing villains and rescue operations, but why darts? Oh. I think I understand. Mei replied. Darts with poison or something so people will be more susceptible to your voice. That or just knock them out. I think tranquilizer darts will work perfectly there. Izuku, we could work on something later. That is an idea I like. Hitachi replied, he really loved the idea of being mid to long range, but Naruto was right, they all needed to learn how to fight, just in case. As for Himiko, Izuku continued, I would say a special type of claws for offense, defense, and for the use of getting the blood you need to transform. Maybe connected to a possible storage system. I would also recommend something long range too, so maybe a whip or something. Kinky. I will see what I can figure out. Himiko joked around, making Izuku's face turn red. He did not even think of that, but he was a bit too pure sometimes. As for myself, I want to learn how to use a bow staff for melee combat, and I really don't want to hurt people so bad that I accidentally kill them, Izuku replied nervously, hanging on to his version of a hero with all his might. For long-range modified arrows with a bow. You get that from reading those old comics again. Hitachi asked with a grin. Green Arrow actually. Out of Batman, Green Arrow, and Iron Man, that one seems the most doable for me. Izuku replied with a shrug. That makes sense, I can see you doing that. Naruto replied with a smile as Izuku turned to him. For you, I have a few questions. What else can your Rinnegan do? What is in the pouch? Izuku asked, notebook ready in anticipation. Naruto chuckled to himself, he should have known that the green bean was going to ask that. Well, I am not comfortable about it, I guess talking will alleviate some past experiences. Let's see, Nagato was a cousin of mine, and he was able to use all 6 paths but in a gruesome way that also left his body handicapped. That's bad. These 6 paths must be brutal. Hitachi grumbled. They are if your body can't handle the strain, Naruto replied. He was able to manipulate 6 dead bodies equipped with chakra receivers, and each body had a set of powers related to a path. The Diva path you saw with my gravity manipulation. The Asura path allowed him to augment the body with mechanical armor and weapons. The human path allows the user to read the mind of a target by placing a hand on the target's head and ripping out the soul to learn all the secrets. The animal path lets the user summon any type of animal to aid them. The Preta path was defensive and allowed the user to absorb various chakra attacks or quirks. The Naraka path was used to restore the bodies if they were damaged and used for interrogation purposes. To do that, it would summon a creature to grab hold of a target's tongue, and if they lied, they would lose their tongue and their life. Finally, there was the outer path. It was used to revive the people he killed. There were other abilities, but I did not read too much after that, and the summoning meteors won. Others like Madara and an old sage were able to do far more. But the Himiko whispered, looking pale with May. I can see why you don't like these eyes, but it is what you do with them that matters here, Hitachi said after a moment of horrified silence with the others, who were not doing much better. Hitachi was sharp there, he noticed that Naruto spoke about them like he experienced it, not read about it. That and Naruto spoke like he was older, it was unnerving sometimes. That could be why he did not want to talk about his past all that much. But what can you do with them? The only paths available to me are the only ones I really want to use. Some of the outer path, the Diva path, minor application of the Asura path, and the animal path. The others I am pretty sure would nearly kill me or outright kill me. Naruto replied with a frown. He knew his current age would not allow him to pull off much of what he knew he could do. With a lot of training, that could be rectified. Okay, summoning animals and controlling gravity, we can work with that. We would have to get books or something for possible weapons your body could turn into. Izuku replied quickly, likely internally screaming. Also, going quickly stopped May for now from using him as a test dummy. Now the pouch. Right, Naruto grumbled, hoping that his earlier explanation did not scare them off, they were kids after all. Opening the pouch, he raised an eyebrow at some of the items he left in there. I forgot some of this stuff was in here. We have kunai and shuriken. Oh. Knives. Neat. Himiko chirped before taking one of the kunai. You know, this reminds me of something a game some of my cousins used to play. A character named Scorpion used something similar. Oh, you mean the kunai spear. Izuku commented. Yeah, that, I might use that instead of a whip. Himiko replied cheerfully with stars in her eyes. Izuku and Hitachi gulped a little, they hoped their friend didn't turn into midnight. After that. Naruto continued, driving the conversation back to the topic. Oh, I forgot Joji told me to hang on to these. Food pills. Food pills? Izuku asked, not understanding. Yeah, Joji's line was able to make special food pills that supplemented their physical abilities or just replenished the chakra in their bodies. Oh, I forgot to mention that the downside of my chakra abilities is that if I run out of chakra I die. That is a serious drawback. Hitachi shouted, fearful for his friend's life. That was why we created the chakra pills, food pills, and these blood pills. Naruto replied as he took those out and then saw 2 pieces of paper with seals on them and some trap seals like explosion and paralytic seals. Interesting. Blood pills? Himiko asked, her interest piqued again. Yeah, mostly used for medical reasons. If someone were losing blood stuff like that. Could I use them for my quirk? Himiko asked, if she had blood pills, that would take care of the cravings. I could see you using them for your cravings and maybe a modified version for longer transformations. Naruto speculated. Tell you what, I will have my mom's agency take a look. Give me one too, I want to test it and see if I can replicate it too. May demanded with a gleeful look. Naruto chuckled as he handed her one, Himiko's eyes never leaving it as if her life depended on it. Maybe it did. As Naruto handed her one, he looked at one of the seals and it had Jiraiya's signature on it. Figuring that it was a storage seal, he released the contents to find a few books and a letter. Reading it, he found that one of the books was a book on seals, another on the complete version of his frog kata, while the other was just the books he had written and wanted to Naruto to keep the originals safe. What better way than to just give it to him in secret and not tell the blonde? Go figure. Are you okay? Himiko asked softly. Yeah, just some old gifts from my favorite uncle. Naruto replied while wiping a tear away while releasing the other seal. It was from Kakashi, judging from the handwriting. The man was giving him a list of jutsu to learn, random parts to the strong and gentle fist to jutsu styles, the broken pieces of his old sword, and the broken sword of the second Hokage. He wanted to teach Naruto more, but with the war, there was no time. Well, judging from all of this, the kunai and shuriken would make for some great long range. Izuku said hurriedly, not wanting his friend to destroy himself by drowning in memories, something the displaced shinobi was grateful for. I have a feeling you're more melee though, so why not a sword like a katana or a rapier? Looking at the seal with the broken swords in it, Naruto smirked, yeah, let's do that. After school, we can start looking for places that could teach us martial arts. Sounds like a plan. Hitachi replied with a smirk, but felt he was in for a lot of pain. It would be worth it in the end. I'll do it, Naruto stated as he walked into Might Tower and saw his mother waiting for him. He had already told her he was going to be late. My friends want to be heroes or go into the hero industry. If I want to protect them, I must be stronger for them. I had a feeling you'd say that, Kaina replied, going off the memory she shared with him. He was always there for his friends. I assume you really do want to change this place. It is the only way to true peace, we just have to shake the system a bit. Naruto replied. I agree, I am glad you are seeing reason. Sir Night said as he walked out. We will tell All Might later, besides, he will admire your heroic spirit. Do you have an outfit picked out as even vigilantes wear costumes to keep their identities a secret? You more than anyone will need one to keep your future. I suppose you are right, Naruto said as he thought about it. The first idea he had was going off the past of this world. People like Zoro, but he did not want to besmirch that character's image with his own even if most people forgot about that character. However, the second character he thought about was not actually a character itself, it was a group from his own world. They only formed because of the tyrant, Hanzo the Salamander. The Akatsuki was originally an idea to stop the goings-on of the Rain Village, that is until Nagato was tricked into working with Tobi and their future antics. He could use the name and make it slightly better in image, especially if he used it to figure out what is going on in Naruto. In order to get over some things in my past, I feel changing the nature of a name will work here. I will be Akatsuki. Ignoring Kaina's gasp at that, Night asked Red Dawn. Like that old American movie? Why am I not surprised that is a thing, Naruto grumbled to himself. Not really, it is something from my old village that had negative connotations. I am changing that for my mental health. They wore large black cloaks with red clouds. For here, I think blue jeans and a black hoodie with red clouds could work here. What about adding in a half-face mask too? Kaina offered. Yeah, I suppose I could go the Kakashi route for this. Naruto pondered aloud. I am not going to even ask who that is. Night deadpanned. Better that you don't, Naruto said before handing him the pouch sans the two seals full of memories. See if you could make more of those shuriken and kunai. I was trained to use those and it doesn't feel right to not use them. Trained to use them? That was a concerning thought for the man, but he merely nodded. And these pills. The three together were food pills made by a clan in my village, it gave them extra energy and calories to do what they did with their quirks. The one in your hand is a blood pill for blood loss and medical reasons. I have a friend at school whose quirk causes them to consume the blood of others to transform into them, and it forces a craving similar to how drug addicts are when they don't have their drug in their system. The final one in there is a chakra pill. Those in my family could use chakra for all kinds of attacks and other things. Except, if they use all of their chakra, they could die, hence the reason for those pills. I will see what we could do to replicate them. These could be very useful medical-wise and those with other calorie-consuming quirks. Sir Night replied, but he was growing more and more concerned for the boy. Him having those in the first place and already being trained in those weapons almost made him rethink sending Naruto to Naruto. It sounded like Naruto had been a child soldier. But the kid was doing well and has shown he could handle certain things in his eyes. Still, he would have to look into this. He seemed to hesitate for a moment before asking, will you allow me to see your future? Oh, so you have future sight like Xian then. I will tell you what I told her. The future is not set, our actions can change the future if we really want to. Naruto replied obstinately while Night wondered who this Xian was so he could talk to her. People with similar quirks should help each other. Still, Night stared at him perplexed while Kaina snickered to herself. Naruto was talking about the priestess he saved so long ago from both death and herself. Funny, I believe you may be right there. Still, though, I am curious. Do you mind? Night asked. I guess it couldn't hurt. Naruto shrugged as he gave the man his arm. If anything bad happens, I will love to prove you wrong. Night Eye gained a huge smile at hearing that. It was a little creepy. After a moment, Sir Night Eye stood rigidly once more and with a forced smile that Naruto saw through but did not comment on it. Acceptable for now. As you said, there are small things I would like to change. For now, I suggest you go meet your potential mentors while I get started on contacting the right people. He said as he walked away, but the others could tell he wasn't happy. Naruto and Kaina found themselves in a rundown dive bar where the bartender did not care that a kid was in the place. Of course, they served normal food, so they stopped caring about that a long time ago. Walking over to a nearby booth, they found a scarred man eating a sandwich. He looked at them for a moment and grunted before gesturing for them to sit. This man was heavily muscled, and that could be seen in his loose-fitting clothes. He had dark but short hair along with heavy stubble on his face, alongside a prominent scar running diagonally down his left cheek. As for his clothes, he wore a dark green shirt that showed off his muscles, blue jeans, and black shoes. Kinda, the man replied after a moment. I half expected you to have brought the commission down on my ass or just outright kill me. Damn, you were serious about me training a kid. Who's the lucky guy? Wow, you were my contact even before you lost your quirk, I would never sell you out. Kaina replied good-naturedly while the man just grunted in acceptance. His look did become uncomfortable at her caring look. How's the searching going? Not that great, that creep seems to have changed my daughter's appearance. The longer this goes on, the less of a chance she will see her mother alive. Iwa stated. I see. Kaina replied sadly. The woman really did prop up this guy, it was sad to hear that she was in a vegetative state. Well, Naruto does have some experience, I just feel he needs a bit more when it comes to hero work and you do not seem to mind helping out kids who need it. Plus, it will help the search go by quicker. Why am I not surprised you know that? I am paying the kid back for bringing me out of my depression, even if he had no idea at the time. Iwa replied before looking at Naruto. He was no fool, he heard about Kaina returning to the light and working for All Might now. They even looked like they had fun together from what he saw. But that had just happened, there was no way Kaina could have a kid with a man so soon, especially not one that was 9 years old. Where did you find the kid? On one of my last jobs for the commission. Found him near a destroyed village and took him with me. Naruto has been through a lot but still managed to make me smile. He is my son now. Kaina replied while ruffling Naruto's hair playfully while he absent-mindedly swatted her hand away. The feeling of a parent dotting on him was weird but nice. Almost like when he traveled with Jiraiya. Iwa stared at Naruto for a while before he shrugged. Funny thing that. Kids make you happy even if they sometimes make you want to tear your hair out. Fine. If the kid could handle being on the streets, he can handle tagging along as I search for my own and teaching another. She didn't say I lived on the streets. Naruto pointed out. She didn't have to. Kid, your eyes are different than most people I have seen. They tell me you have seen things like most hardened heroes who have seen the worst humanity has to offer. I can tell you have had a rough life just by looking at you. Most of all, your eyes tell me that you have had time to accept or are close to accepting what has happened. I won't pry too much regarding a destroyed village, but it does sound fishy. Keep up and we will be fine. Meet me out back tomorrow with whatever you plan to wear and we will get started. I expect Kaina's fancy new agency will have told you more of what is going on with Trigger. I expected more pushback on this. Kaina replied a bit perplexed. Me too, but I need all the help I can get. Don't worry, I will protect your kid. Holy shit, you actually came. Shouted a distinctly female voice as Naruto and Kaina entered a local gym. The pro-hero Mirko chose not to have an agency all to herself, instead, she hung out at hotels and various gyms with fighting rings. Right now, Mirko, or rather Rumi, was in her civilian gym wear. Gym shorts and a white tank top. It showed off her very muscular build, mostly centered around her thighs for her devastating kicks. It almost distracted them from her large bunny ears and cotton tail. Yeah well, with you always hounding me to hang out, I figured I'd take you up on your offer and ask for some help, Kaina replied with a smirk at her own little joke. A rabbit hounding someone like a dog. Seriously, thank you for always reaching out. It kept me from not fully losing it when I was at the commission. What are friends for? Rumi asked with a softer look before she gained a shit-eating grin. Ooh, Namuri going to be so jealous, especially since you have a kid. Name's Naruto. Naruto offered with an easygoing smirk of his own. I like him already. Rumi snarked. Just like you Kaina, not minding those more powerful than him and actually being familiar instead of cowering. You sure he is not yours by blood? I'd have remembered that, Kaina replied with a deadpan look. But no, I adopted him. If you and Namuri still want to hang out, that is fine with me, but I need a small favor. Will you train him? You actually want me to train him? As in hand-to-hand combat? Rumi asked with wide eyes, and at Kaina's nod, she snorted. Come on, you must be playing me. Not even you wanted to train like that. Considering I have a gun in my arm, I am better at long range, not short range. Kaina deadpanned. Fair point. You and Namuri were no fun in that area, it was why I went off all the time to those fights. Oops. Rumi looked slightly nervous that she admitted that, especially when a kid was around. Speaking of, do you still participate in them or do you run them now? Kaina asked with a knowing look while Rumi looked perplexed at that. I run my own arena on the down low since those pansies stopped after a while. Now I run them because I want a decent fight, one where I do not have to put them behind bars. We can continue to fight again and again if I wanted to. Rumi stated with an almost excited expression. How's that working for you? Kaina asked and watched as Rumi's excited expression lessened a bit. Not the best, just a bunch of low-level hooligans. I also hate to admit this, but some of that trigger BS is getting there. I just want to fight while people want to be weird. How about you train Naruto for that? He can help clean up and you get your eventual fighter. Kane offered, gaining a serious look from her friend. You really are serious about this? The hero high school route too slow? Rumi asked. He's already had some experience with that world since his village got destroyed. Kaina replied, making Rumi straighten up and study the kid a little more. Think you can keep up, kid? I won't be around every day to take care of you. I got hero duties after all. Rumi probed. Oh please, if I could survive my grandma and her ability to create fissures with her finger, I can survive a battle-happy rabbit. Naruto said after a moment and decided to taunt the woman given her personality. And it seemed to work. Rumi gained a smirk and a fire in her eyes. Walking into the arena, Rumi said, alright you little shit. Fight me now, I wanna see what you are made of. Now I am getting pumped up myself. Naruto shouted with a smile on his own, making Kaina shake her head with a small smile. But it did her heart good to see Naruto starting to smile again. However, Rumi looked at the kid oddly for a moment, and that was attributed to the fact that Naruto was letting his Genjutsu Fox features show through. Oh yeah, predator versus prey, this should be fun. Heh, this could get hair-why. Naruto joked, however, as the mock battle started, he remembered that he was in the body of a 9-year-old again, and he was slightly weaker because of it. He would soon learn he was actually the prey in this instance. To the surprise of the two women, he put up a decent fight, but Rumi still handed him his ass. The next day, Naruto found himself eating some instant ramen he cooked himself, much to the annoyance of one Koichi Himawari, a rather plain-looking college-age guy. Wow, now known as Knuckledister, brought him over to the young man's rooftop apartment so they could meet. I still do not remember agreeing to you being my master and you have a kid with you. Do you really need 2 students? Koichi asked, trying to get this man out of his house. Someone who had invited themselves in, by the way. I am helping Naruto as a favor to a friend and you both will be calling me master. Knuckledister grumbled out as he gave Koichi his student ID back to him and went off in the fridge to rate it. Again, I don't remember agreeing to this. Koichi whined as Knuckledister promptly ignored him in favor of drinking all his beer. Turning to Naruto, he felt the need to ask, so how old are you, kid? 9, but that does not matter, I can hold my own. On the streets, call me Akatsuki. Naruto informed him. You're both way too eager for this. Koichi deadpanned. Right, Knuckledister said after a moment of being comfortable. I will train you because of the shit going down in your own backyard. If you want to continue helping people the way you want, you gotta adapt, especially when instant villains show up. Instant villains? Yeah, it was why I was checking the tongues of those guys I saved you and the girl from last night. Checking to make sure they were not using a drug that's been making the rounds. The old man informed them. The drug's called Trigger. It is a quirk booster that also weakens the user's ability to reason. Basically, this drug turns normal people into villains. Sounds more like more than a few of them could actually be victims, Naruto replied after taking another bite of ramen. Whoever is giving them this drug sounds like they are pointing and shooting, much like a gun. Then there are the addicts who take it because they can and have to. That too, Knuckledister agreed, this drug is why so many people are getting turned into villains out of nowhere. We gotta do something about it, and what better way to train the both of you? Why not just wait for the heroes or the police to catch these guys? Koichi asked. Ain't gonna happen, Knuckledister replied while shaking his head. These pop-up villains on Trigger can emerge from any crowd at any time. The cops and heroes are always stuck playing catch-up. So, they blend in with everyone else because they are everyone else. Koichi deadpanned, feeling like he was losing brain cells in this conversation. That's where we come in, we can blend in too. Naruto commented. Again, with a we, do you have a mouse in your packet? Koichi groaned out. "'S right boys. Knuckledister cheered roughly. We gonna go out, look for suspicious characters, and check out their tongues. Why their tongues? Because I heard their tongues turn black when they are on Trigger or because of prolonged use of it. Naruto stated, at least it is what my mom found out anyway. What about you pops? Yes. Knuckleduster confirmed with a hard look on his scarred face. We'll give those black-tongued losers a beatdown and make them spill the beans on their dealer. That's how we put an end to this whole drug trade. Don't forget that there are some civilians in the mix, try not to beat them down too hard. Naruto injected. Yeah, Knuckleduster said, waving off the young boy. How else am I going to get a look at their tongues, especially when they call us creepy for asking? Well, there is always the taunting method. Naruto replied with a shrug. I thought that you idiots were joking. Koichi cried out as he stopped Knuckleduster from punching out some random guy while protecting Naruto from some thugs he pissed off. This method is going to get us killed. Naruto snickered from his seat on a nearby bench as Koichi panted and Knuckleduster merely lit up a cigarette, uncaring. Naruto found it funny because of his old pranks and the people he had to fight before. And here was some college kid protecting him from street thugs, it was both funny and nice at the same time. Growing up before, he doubted anyone would come to his aid like college boy. Seriously, what is all the fuss now? A new voice said as they landed on a light pole above them. Looking at her costume, Naruto wondered if she got any tips from people back in his world, mostly Anko. In a word, it was rather skimpy, but she did make it work for her. Him approving briefly made him wonder if Uraya really did get to him. This new girl had a painted-on mask around her eyes, tied up her pink hair in spiky pigtails, and was dressed in a devilish-themed one-piece leotard with a heart-shaped opening in the center of her chest and a smaller one just below the actual mini-bat wings on her back. In addition to it, she also wore a reddish-pink bow tie, a pair of silver pearl earrings, black elbow-length gloves, a black super miniskirt with 3 hearts on the belt, and black knee-high boots. Idly, Naruto wondered if he was cursed to always work with pink-haired people. There was Sakura and now this chick that seemed to know Koichi, who was now in an All Might-themed hoodie. This guy was a serious fanboy, and Naruto wondered how Izuku and him would interact. Nothing much, but if I don't keep an eye on these two, Koichi said, gesturing to Naruto and Iwao, then they will cause everyone to gang on of them. Akatsuki taunting them while Grandpa Fist here beats them all to hell. We are really just looking for junkies and dealers so we can lure out the instant villains. Naruto replied as he relaxed a bit. Aren't you a bit young for this? The pink-haired girl asked. I am Pop Step, by the way. Never too young to be a decent person. I cannot just sit around and let people be victims of trigger if I can help it. Naruto replied, getting a small smile for Pop. However, Pop Step had some words for Grandpa Fist. Thanks for yesterday, but I haven't forgotten how you were about to sacrifice me to those thugs, Pops. Knuckleduster just grumbled to himself. Such a nice guy better stick around now more than ever if the old man has you too wrapped up in this. The more the merrier, Naruto replied with a smile. Koichi, we gotta get you a codename so the cops don't come after you. I am nice guy. Koichi deadpanned and then silently cried when Naruto groaned in annoyance. I am with the kid, but we can think up a better name for you later. Pop Step snickered. But are you three really going about this randomly? At their nods, she groaned before taking out her phone. We need to be smarter about this and use our heads. Let's use social media. She began showing Naruto and Koichi stuff on her phone that neither one of them thought about. Mainly because one was a tired college student with bad social skills and the other from a low-tech world. See? Whenever a villain shows up, someone is bound to snap a pic. Let's just refine the search to unknown villains and instant villains. That means less legwork in the end. Pop said cheerfully as she helped the young boys with the technology they were missing out on, while Knuckleduster just grumbled to himself that his way was more fun. You know, I should take my mom up on her offer for a phone now. Naruto thought aloud. Pair this with stealth, we could really get more done. See, there you go. Pop cheered happily. However, before they could do anything else, Knuckleduster was on the move again, and this time he was stomping toward a middle-aged man in a nice suit. The 3 younger kids gave each tired looks before going to stop him, even if Naruto found this slightly amusing. Hey. You there, stick out your tongue. Knuckleduster roared at the comparably smaller man. Really, again, Koichi groaned. Were you even listening to us? Pop Step screamed. At least this tracks for him. Naruto deadpanned before hopping up on Knuckleduster's shoulder, startling him a bit. Come on, the street thugs I get, but an office worker. Seems a bit out there, right? I don't care, I have a job to do. Knuckleduster roared as he took the suited man by his collar, however, the weaker man dropped his suitcase, and out popped hero action figures. It just seemed to set off the older man though, instead of cooling off his temper. What kind of adult carries around dolls? Too suspicious. There are plenty of people who have weird hobbies. Pop Step defended the now scared man. I am with her on this, I know a kid that is hero obsessed and takes notes on everything about them, even their powers. So, this guy plays with or collects action figures, big whoop. Naruto replied with a bored look. Actually, I work at a toy company, the man replied lowly, trying to defend himself. Oh, that makes more sense. Naruto replied and then gave Knuckleduster a pointed look, who didn't look ashamed at all for what he did. However, before anything else could be done, the man's raised fist was suddenly bound in cloth. Violent acts in full view of the public, hardly a model citizen. The owner of the cloth stated. He looked homeless to say the least, but Naruto's warning senses were going off with this man. Despite the lazy attitude of the man before them, he looked ready to fight at a moment's notice, despite the grocery bag he was carrying. The homeless man looked slender and tall with shoulder-length black hair that looked unkempt. He wore a baggy black long-sleeved shirt with matching pants that were tucked into his equally black boots. Around his neck was a white scarf he was currently using to bind Knuckleduster, who looked like he was struggling just a bit with getting his arm back. You must be one of those instant villains as of late. Shit, Knuckleduster grumbled as he finally got his arm out of the scarf. You're Eraserhead. Either of you know of him? Naruto asked as they shook their heads in the negative while looking nervous. I will just have to ask Izuku later. You know, I was off duty today, but even I can't help being a good Samaritan. Eraserhead droned as he shot his scarf at the larger man again. Naruto, seeing his chance, jumped off Knuckleduster's back so he would not be a hindrance. Same here. I guess we got that in common. Knuckleduster replied with a manic grin, knowing he would get his fight today. Oh crap, does he think we are villains too? Koichi cried, making Pop step a bit nervous. Oh hell no. Don't lump me in with them. Pop step freaked out as well. He doesn't seem to be all that focused on us, small fry, Naruto commented as he watched the two older men square off. He found the way they fought each other exhilarating. Two pro fighters going off on each other with their own fighting styles. One with pure brute force and brass knuckles and the other with experience and a strange cloth weapon that was obviously used to capture people with. He would also have to talk to Mei and Hitachi about that later. At first, Naruto didn't know he would actually be learning anything from the gruff older man other than a manic need to find something or someone. Now he was observing a real clash of skills. Something that Jiraiya had taught him to watch. He could learn something after all. Plus, whoever this Pop Step girl was, he could learn technology from her. Oh man, we gotta stop this. Koichi said nervously before turning to the businessman picking up his briefcase contents and was about to get the hell out of Dodge. I apologize for us scaring you, but would you please explain to that man that aren't the bad guys? Nope. The businessman said after a moment and run away as fast as he could. I can't really blame him. Koichi tiredly replied in response to the man just running away. Thankfully, Pop made him run after the guy when she said that he was starting to look familiar to her from the many photos of pop-up villains she was able to pull up on her phone. Careful Naruto, something dark is brewing. Kurama's voice rumbled in his mind. Tearing his eyes away from the battle for a moment, Naruto's senses picked up on something. Over time here, well there was no chakra in people, he could sense a strange energy in people, which he guessed was what empowered their quirks. Kaina, Sir Night-Eye, Koichi, and Pop Step all had something unique about them. Knuckleduster only had remnants of something like it had been taken away, which tracked, but the fleeing man's felt off from what he was beginning to recognize. It felt twisted a bit, and the negative emotions were not really of fear, but a twisted desire that wanted to mess with him. And he was running towards more people that felt the same type of twist with their quirks. Which was where Pop and Koichi were headed. Damn. He had to do something about it, however, he recently learned that his signature jutsu to overwhelm the enemy and shadow clones was a no-go. Thanks to the Rinnegan that popped up when he used chakra, he got overloaded senses, and that really pissed him off. He really to work on that, but right now he needed to help his partners. Looking at the two adults, he no longer felt this was amusing when real threats were on the way. He had to put a stop to this, and he did it in the most annoying way possible to the two men. By loudly crunching on popcorn, he unsealed it for a future taste use. It was surprisingly good. Eraserhead stopped first and stared at the kid who was eating popcorn with a mask on. Are you serious? About your fight? Not really, but there are things coming this way that I am serious about. Naruto replied, pointing a free thumb in the direction of three rampaging thugs on trigger, trying to beat down Koichi. Eraserhead groaned under his breath when he saw them too. He had already deduced that the brash man was quirkless, so there was not much he could or should do about that. Just someone overzealous about looking for trouble. However, it seemed that real trouble was already here in the form of three thugs whose quirks were going out of control. A heavily muscled man with fire on his head and shoulders almost like Endeavor. A humanoid lizard person that seemed to have gained the power of huge wings. Finally, their leader's quirk was obviously revolved around red spikes that now grew all over his body. Almost like his quirk was that of a porcupine or a hedgehog, the latter of which he was rolling around like. Terrific. Alright kid, now it is time to fight. Show me what you got while I take the big man. Knuckleduster shouted excitedly as he grabbed hold of a nearby brick to smash against the head of the fire giant. Eraserhead gave the man a what the hell look for including an actual child in this. However, Eraserhead's disbelief only grew when Naruto screamed out, summoning to bring forth a large silverback gorilla that stopped the rampaging spikeball and then slammed it into the ground like a basketball. Meanwhile, Naruto himself jumped off the gorilla's back to punch the flying lizard man in the gut while simultaneously slapping a paralyzing seal on the creature, only for it to disintegrate shortly after, so no one could figure out how he did it. Not that he figured anyone in this world would, but better safe than sorry. Thinking quickly, Eraserhead used his capture weapon to bind the now deployed trio of thugs and call the cops, only to groan in annoyance when he saw another instant villain, only this one was kaiju size. He hated dealing with those types. Thankfully, however, it just had the mind of a toddler as it played with cars with its 4 massive hands and annoyingly took the flying lizard man to play with as well. Such a pain, none of this was logical. But he had to hand it to the quartet of vigilantes, they were fighting it for him. They all had guts, even the All Might Wannabe who saved a pink-haired girl when that tough old bastard brained the kaiju with his body hard enough to let go of the girl. The animal summoning kid then created giant eagles to then save the falling Wannabe, the tough old guy, and any other people that the giant was playing with. It was surreal to watch on Eraserhead's day off. Seeing all this, Eraserhead sighed that he would actually have to do more work on his day off though because the giant was still standing. Activating his own quirk, he forced the kaiju to deploy and shrink before capturing him too. None of this was rational, but thanks for your help, I suppose. To parrot your words, we are just good Samaritans, Knuckleduster replied cheekily with a thumbs up when he landed. It is our duty to help out heroes on the job. It is a little dangerous to call your make-believe heroism good. Eraserhead deadpanned, he was already tired of this crap. We pick up the slack though. We do what the pro heroes can't. Knuckleduster said as he proudly watched the eagles put people down before he started to walk away. What the pro can't? Eraser asked. Yeah, like that giant and the other little punks. We kick the shit out of them before they have a chance to do evil. Iwa replied with a dark grin. Hey now, preemptive assault like that is obviously a crime. The pro hero replied as he picked up his groceries to them ready when the cops did show up to take these instant villains away. However, he was not moving to try and capture Knuckleduster and his brats. He had already done too much work on his day off to begin with. If that is the case, us getting charged with something only happens afterward. Ugh, that guy was going to be a pain in the ass later, wasn't he? So, you admit premeditation. You're one bad-tempered guy. Eraser grumbled out. Takes one to know one. Knuckleduster shouted out from the alley he entered. And don't worry about the kid, I'll teach him only what he needs to. Yeah, not only was the old bastard going to be an issue later, but so were the other brats. They were going to be problem children. Go figure. Oh well, not his problem. Alright, kid. It seems you do have your basics down, so that is good. Rumi stated as she watched Naruto slowly get up from her training. Maybe it was the rabbit in her that took a bit of vindictive pleasure in watching the fox struggle. Still, she was a good person and a hell of a trainer in her own mind to put this kid down. Plus, Kaina would kill her if she really hurt the kid and sadly, Rumi would never see it coming. Kaina aka Lady Nagant was just that good. The hunter aspect still scared the hell out of her, not that she would ever admit that. Before I teach you anything I know, do you have anything else you want to add to your fighting style? Weakly getting back to his feet and then flopping down on a nearby stool, Naruto groaned as he felt the aches and pain of this workout. He was grateful that his healing factor was still up and running thanks to his Uzumaki blood. Rumi was a taskmaster on par with Jiraiya, which made sense. That man was a legend in his own right and Rumi, as Mirko, was quickly becoming a legend and a menace if you ask the right people. Well, I do have a few things I wanted to run by you since you are an expert in hand-to-hand combat. Oh? Well, let's see them, kid. Rumi replied excitedly, and it wasn't because her student just complimented her or anything. Going over to his bag, he took out a couple of scrolls before handing them to her. That first one is from one of my old teachers, Jiraiya. It details the more advanced side of my frog kata. Those other two are from another teacher of mine, Kakashi. He was only able to take parts of 2 different styles and add them to the scrolls. Strong fist and gentle fist. Old teachers, Rumi muttered to herself. Kaina did mention that the kid's home village was destroyed, but it felt like there was more to that story, but for her own sanity, she chose not to prod further. But when she read these techniques over, she was baffled and impressed. Strong fist dealt in bone-breaking power, while gentle fist was anything but gentle. Dealing internal damage like it was candy, what the hell? Where were these when she was learning to fight? Some of it did look like other martial arts mixed in, but still, this could work. Kid, it may not be complete, but we have a gold mine here. I might learn a few things myself. Still, combining your frog kata with my fighting style and adding in these moves, you are going to be a powerhouse in hand-to-hand combat when I am done with you. As Rumi laughed hysterically at the possibility of everything, Naruto sweat dropped. He may have created a monster here. And when we are done, I am really entering you in my fighting arena. That way to gain the experience and I gain a fighting partner for life. That is the best. Oh yeah, he was doomed. You seeing this? It is kind of comical. Naruto asked from a rooftop next to Pop's step. They were observing a couple of high schoolers having a spat out in public, using their quirks. One was fairly tall and had a visor like Cyclops, and the other was a short stack, sideburns, and had swords coming out of his wrists. They looked a lot like certain X-Men. Wait, they're middle schoolers. This is hilarious. Koichi, do you got this? Gotcha. I'll be right there. The station, right. The All Might fanboy confirmed through their radio. Knock it off, you two. However, as soon as he reached them, he found he could not stop and glided right past the two confused fighters. Can't stop. And promptly crashed into a pile of crates and other boxes. Good thing Knuckledister gave him extra protective gear even if it was for bikers. It still looked good and did its job. I am surprised you aren't down there, Naruto. You are usually all for egging people on if it is not that serious. That are quickly stopping them. Pop Step pointed out. Sorry, I am just a bit sore, Naruto admitted. When Grandpa Fist isn't drilling me, my other martial arts teacher is beating me down to be able to handle this new style we are putting together. Try and take it easy then. Pop Step replied encouragingly, a bit concerned for her younger friend. I'll try, but there is no rest of the wicked. Looks like they are about done, better go help Crawler though. I like egging people on, but he does it by just being himself. Naruto joked while Pop shook her head with a smirk before following him down. Anyway, no more fighting. Violence never solved anything, you know. Koichi said cheerfully, except it had the opposite effect and seemed to piss off the middle school toughs even more. You ain't the boss of us. The short stack yelled, shoving Koichi away. Haha, stop that now. Wow, that didn't even hurt, this armor works great. Koichi replied, further angering the kids. Careful now. Don't let the anger control your actions. You'll regret it. Naruto replied suddenly between, making them jump 10 feet in the air. Naruto continued to just stand there with his hands in his pockets. Holy shit kid, where did you come from? The taller of the two yelled out. Around. Naruto chirped. Now, my job is to irritate people, but Crawler already did that was his obliviousness. To end this, will you show us your tongues? Who the hell are you kid? Why should we listen to what you say? The short stack screamed. You can call me Akatsuki. Naruto responded with a slight bow of showmanship. I was merely asking to confirm you aren't on trigger. If you don't, Knuckledister will ask you the hard way. And who the hell is that? The boy asked only for Naruto to point behind them, which put them on edge. It got worse when they saw who he was talking about. That'd be me. I take out trash like you trigger-happy idiots. I am the janitor of the fist. Knuckledister. Iwa said, getting in close to give them a dark smirk. Now, you see my friend here is rather violent, more than you two, so it would be better for all involved to just show us your tongues. Naruto replied suddenly again, and the atmosphere became rather cold. Come on, do we need to intimidate everyone? Koichi complained. Talking works just as well. I agree, but it does not always get the job done, Crawler. So, boys, what will it be? Naruto asked. What is with this kid and the old man, they are both scary. The taller middle schooler asked. Watching this is exhausting. Pop Step shouted as she landed near them. Hey, mind if I step in? Pop Step. Both boys shouted in glee and acted a bit like pervs with their tongues hanging out. Or we can use good ole instincts. Naruto deadpanned. He forgot that Kazuho's Pop Step was a locally famous idol. It made him think back to his training with Jiraiya. Maybe he should keep the man's legacy alive by publishing his books here. If these preteens were going gaga over Pop Step, what would adults think of his book? Probably the same way they deal with that hero called Midnight. Seeing that they were in the clean, Knuckledister lost interest, especially when Pop Step started giving out her autograph, much to Naruto's further amusement. Unfortunately, that was the perfect distraction for them to barely notice the ground begin to tremble. It's a villain. Someone screamed out as a larger-than-average man with rock skin came stomping down the road, screaming about being so hard no one could touch him. While Koichi hurried off to save a baby that a woman nearly lost in the rampage, Naruto and Knuckledister got into gear. While that was going on, Pop Step did what she did best and got the scared crowd to evacuate as much as they could. Iwa tried to give the man a knuckle sandwich, but the rock man just laughed it off, much to everyone's horror when he backhanded Iwa into the ground. Seeing this, Naruto and Koichi nodded to each other before they ran at the instant villain, and then they both delivered an uppercut that knocked him back, saving Iwa from being crushed. The attack resulted in showing off that yes, this man had a black tongue and was one trigger, but they already suspected that. Especially when the man just responded in psycho babble. "Akatsuki, show me one of your new moves while I show this idiot that he ain't used to his new body." Knuckleduster ordered as he forced that giant rock man on his back rather roughly. Tsunade's heavenly impact. Akatsuki screamed as he jumped on Knuckleduster's back and landed heel first on the rockman's face, not only knocking him out, but cracking the ground underneath his head. Basically, he performed the strong fist's leaf drop, but he wanted to name it in honor of not only Guy and Lee, but Tsunade and Sakura as well. Holy shit. The two middle schoolers screamed while Knuckleduster roared in laughter. Yeah, those two are rather intense. Pop Step replied in exasperation. Well, at least his hardened armor protected him from the worst of it. You really knocked him out of it, Akatsuki. Koichi commented as the man was back to normal and unconscious. Good, less work for us, Knuckleduster grumbled as he reached for the man's ID, only for there to be none. Better tie him up so he doesn't cause any trouble for the cops. One of you brats take a picture of his tongue too. Proof that he went nuts because of the drug. Tongue? You guys have done this before? The shorter kid asked. Yay, we learned that your tongue turns black when you take trigger. Pop Step informed them. Please watch out for your friends and make sure they don't take it. Shoot me a text if something comes up, K? Yeah, drugs are bad, K. Naruto commented with a smirk when they backed up from him a bit and agreed with him. However, before anything else could be said, they finally heard the telltale sirens of cops on their way. Man, Knuckleduster was right, they were slow. See you around, boys. Pop laughed as she leaped away with her partners whom she wouldn't admit she was actually partners with. At least not yet. However, the boys were merely transfixed on her exposed butt until Naruto started giggling madly. Why was the kid giggling? Well, because he summoned a literal barrel of monkeys to swing him about from the incident. That kid is weird. The eye laser kid said, and his friend just nodded dumbly as he watched the scene. Back in Koichi's apartment, the four of them began to relax until Pop Step checked her phone for any news of them. Ah. What went down today is the talk of the town. Yeah? What do they think of the new heroes? Koichi asked. They are calling your three, Freaky Fist Grandpa, Red Cloud Boy, and the Crawler. Kazuho replied with some amusement. They included her involvement, which she wished they didn't, but at least they got her name right. But is the Crawler? Cried Koichi. Just be glad they remembered your name at all. Best we are going to get for a while. Naruto replied, eating a bowl of ramen he got from somewhere again. Seriously? Where are you getting that ramen? Koichi freaked out. That is my secret. Naruto replied cheekily, by the way Pop, did you get the name of those two guys? Yup, Ichimoku and Jube. It is great to have fans. Pop Step cheered happily. Oh. By the way, Naruto, who is Tsunade? A girl at school. No, she was my grandmother. Oh. It was a few weeks later when Naruto found himself in an old abandoned school with Rumi. She figured the best education was experience. His new fighting style was coming along nicely and she figured she'd throw him in the deep end. Said deep end being the gymnasium of a locally abandoned school where a bunch of street toughs all gathered for one of Tiger Bunny's short tournaments. They all knew it was the up-and-coming hero Mirko, but kept that to themselves since she threw the best parties. I really should have expected to pull this off and leave me alone. Her and Jiraiya, I swear. Naruto groaned to himself as he pulled at his Akatsuki outfit. They all still kept their identities hidden in case the cops ever got called on their little gatherings. That's is what teachers do, I guess. You are talking about a teacher, right? A white-haired teen replied. He looked like he could be of high school age. He wore a red and black tracksuit with the sleeves ripped off, but his arms were heavily bandaged and he was barefoot. Oh. I am Tadaaki Hogasuru, nice to meet you kid. Call me Akatsuki. Naruto muttered, why are you being so friendly to me? So far, all the people here have just been mean mugging me. Well, Tadaaki muttered. Until now, I have been the youngest at these gatherings. Most people have their own groups that they deal with. I have been alone here, so I know what that is like. Didn't want that for you. Everyone could use an ally. I suppose you are right. Thank you. Naruto replied as they watched a few fights already begin in what looked like a caged arena. That was when Naruto noticed something odd. Hey, some of these fights are rather one-sided. Why? Probably to weed out the weak. There are quirkless adults here and then people who rely on a weak quirk. It all just depends on who has got the most skill here. Tadaaki explained. Say what is your quirk? What indeed? Rumi and him decided it was best if he used his limited control over the Asura path. Weak mechanical limbs to train them. Better than relying on his summoning jutsu for this. That way he could keep people guessing about what he really had. I can temporarily turn my body into mechanical weapons. But right now it is weak and I won't rely too much on that. I know how to fight. Well now, I am even more curious about you, kid. The white-haired kid replied. As for me, I haven't really figured that part out myself. I could be quirkless, but people just seem slower around me. I don't know, guess I am just too fast for them. That was surprisingly unhelpful. Akatsuki. Time to show us what you are made of. Tiger Bunny shouted from her throne not too far away. Please don't be just some boring kid who gets his ass whooped. Oh damn, the boss is calling you out. Good luck. Tadawaki replied cheerfully as Naruto made his way into the cage. Naruto found he liked his enthusiasm. Watching as a beefcake man entered from the other side, Naruto assumed that people already assumed he would be out in a while. Getting pounded on by pure muscle would do that. However, Naruto and Rumi already thought of something good to use with his gentle fist style. Since these people didn't have normal chakra he could detect and block, not that he could see it anyway, he would have to use something else to be effective. That being his mechanical parts, he could turn his fingers into high-powered tasers. Time to go night-night brat. The man screamed in glee that his first match of the night was going to be way too easy. You're right, Naruto muttered lowly as he took a gentle fist stance he saw Hinata take one time. Then his fingers sparked, causing murmurs to rise. But not for me. The two ran at each other until the larger man brought his fist down to smack Naruto into the dirt, but Naruto flipped over that and landed on top of the arm before poking two fingers into the shoulder joint, causing the man to scream out like a little girl for a moment. What the kid? The man roared and freaked out a bit when he couldn't feel his arm anymore. It was completely numb and limp. What are you crying about? Naruto taunted. This is a street fight, right? People get hurt all the time. Don't worry though, it is only temporary. I'll show you temporary, you little shit. The man roared and unleashed his quirk, which happened to be something akin to an Emp blast, only it was amplified thanks to a certain application of trigger. He never thought he would have to use his quirk this early. The result was indeed Naruto's fingers going out and shaking in pain, while the part of the city they were in went completely dark. Come on man. Now when they restart the grid, they will come here. Another man shouted in annoyance. Well then kid, how will you handle your quirk being taken out? Tiger Bunny asked ominously, ignoring all the people groaning about having to go home early. Her speech chilled everyone into silence though. That was cold-hearted, even for a pro hero. This is all about skill, is it not? Naruto asked aloud, causing a certain white-haired teen to break out laughing in the middle of the crowd. Naruto chuckled to himself as he took the strong fist stance, one he knew he'd always take. Despite the darkness, he knew the man could see him as he made a come-on motion. What are you waiting for, meathead? I still have a bedtime. I'll be sure to make you take an early bedtime brat. Arg. The man screamed in a blind rush with his remaining usable arm. Leaf hurricane. Naruto shouted as the guy completely missed him in the dark but kept on going forward right into a series of kicks to the face and neck that battered him until he was out like the lights. Holy shit kid. That was awesome. Another random guy shouted in the dark, making the others roar in approval. Anyone else want some? Naruto asked as his hands shook as he forced them back to normal. Well that would be more fun. That man is right. The cops will be here soon, so I suggest you all leave. Tiger Bunny announced. I will send the coordinator to the next fight soon. The whole room groaned in annoyance as they filed out, some even kicking the Emp idiot on the way out. Tadawaki merely pushed through them and said, hey, let's keep in touch. You got a phone yet kid? Naruto just chuckled as he flashed his very own phone. Rumi didn't show it on her face as she walked out, but she was proud of the kid for holding his ground against the odds. She was such a cool aunt in her own humble opinion. Oh, so this is where you work? Naruto asked aloud once he saw Koichi behind the counter of a small convenience store he found to pick up some ramen. What did I miss yesterday? Do I know you? Koichi asked, weirded out that some random blonde kid that walked into his store that knew him. Naruto smirked at him. Oh I don't know Crawler, do I? I mean you barely keep your mask on. Maybe red clouds floating by will jog your memory. Okay, I get it you brat. Koichi deadpanned, he should have known Akatsuki would know him, half the neighborhood already did from his time as nice guy. Name's Naruto, by the way. What did I miss yesterday? I had a martial arts class. Naruto ended lamely. Not much, some random fan got triggered and tried to molest Pop Step as we tried capturing the little fella. Koichi sighed out. Come on, my shift is over, we can head to my place. And you just let it happen. This is not funny at all. Naruto replied, peeved that Pop Step, a partner of theirs, almost got hurt or worse. I agree with you, kid. At least we got him. Koichi replied tiredly. Pop, are you okay? I heard some weird shit went down. Hey, you are out of uniform too. Naruto replied in shock. Pop Step as a civilian looked like a normal schoolgirl with messy pink hair and glass. I get it, idle you is the opposite of your civilian side. I like it. Yeah, I am fine, just got covered in goo from the kid's eel quirk. Pop Step shivered at the memory as Koichi took a call. It was gross and I had to take a shower here. Call me Kazuho, by the way. Naruto. Nice to fully meet you. The blonde replied with a grin. Aren't you just the cutest playing hero with us? Kazuho replied with a giggle as she hugged him. While Naruto found it nice to be treated as a kid, well, as a kid for once, he was still older about her age actually, so it was both nice and annoying. Hey, Ichimoku wants to meet us. It is about eel boy, seems he wants to apologize. Koichi stated, making Kazuho perk up. That is fine with me, but let's not tell the old man about this, Kazuho replied with a cringe. He might just start swinging again when we meet the kid. Oh right, last time he was out cold before we knew it. Koichi sighed, this time he might strangle him or break his fingers into little pieces. Oh, he is not that bad, right? Naruto asked nervously. Yeah, he might. The three of them agreed after a moment. The three of them ended up going at a leisurely pace, which resulted in them revealing their identities to the public, a bit. Not that half the city of Naruhata didn't know who Koichi already was. Even less knew or cared who Akatsuki was with their heads down. Most did think it was either cute that he was playing hero at his age, or that he was too young to do what he did. The street thugs did not care because word already spread about his street fighting. Hold on you two, wait up. Pop Step groaned as she tried keeping pace with them on the ground. Oddly enough, she wore sunglasses and a hoodie over her costume to keep a lot of people from knowing it was her. Acting like a celebrity to keep a low profile already. All that leaping of yours, it makes sense now, you are a slow walker. Naruto replied, teasing her a bit. Yeah, these shoes were meant for that, not walking. Pop replied. Well, don't want you tripping over yourself with your land legs. Koichi chuckled a bit at his own joke as he offered her his arm, making Naruto smirk a bit. Koichi was socially awkward, but he was already attracting Pop a bit if she took his arm without hesitation. This could lead to a scandal if anyone around here spots us. Pop Step replied, but she didn't stop leaning onto him for support. I doubt anyone will recognize you in that getup. Naruto replied, brushing her off. OMG. Pop Step. A girl's voice rang out. Okay, I was wrong. Some people are more perceptive than I thought. Naruto replied with a shrug when Pop glared at him. They turned to see a young woman about high school age. She had short brown hair, styled so that it swept over her left eye, and the right eye was covered in a wide eye patch, a green eye showing through, and had sharp teeth in that devious smile of hers. She still wore her school uniform this late in the day, which consisted of a white dress shirt with a bow at the neck, a short pale skirt, and a dark jacket with white sleeves. She also had dark nail polish on her fingernails. The girl looked at her hanging on Koichi and the kid by their side and smiled. Too cute, and I caught the real thing. I did not think you had an event today. Oh wait, now I get it. The glasses, no eye makeup. They work for you though. Eyeing her hanging off Koichi for support, her grin became teasing. You don't mind we take a pic? The kid or your boyfriend could do it. I am not her boyfriend. Koichi replied with a laugh, especially after seeing how it made Pop Step uncomfortable. So he just played it off. No, it's not like that. Wait, why are you so quick to deny it? Pop Step stammered only to start yelling at her friend, which made the group get a good laugh. Hey? What? Why are you so mad? You still have a lot to learn, my friend. Naruto replied after a moment of them watching Pop say that Koichi was just her manager and Naruto a friend. After the picture was taken, however, Naruto frowned and said, I have to go to the bathroom, I will catch up. He was gone before either of them said anything though, making them shrug it off. The reason for Naruto's frown though was because he once again felt that something was off. His detection skill was getting stronger the more he tried feeling outwards, and Pop Step's fan was confusing. He felt the presence of two Quirk-like energies, and he was not sure what that was about. It felt like one was feeding off the other. That and the girl was faking her emotions. They were actually dark and twisted compared to her outward smile. Taking to the rooftops, he began to trail the girl and her friends, taking a few photos for just in case. If it came out to nothing, that just meant he needed to tweak his senses a bit. What do you think, guys? Naruto whispered to himself. It is hard to detect, there are defiantly two beings in that girl. Kurama grumbled after a moment of conversing with his siblings. The hidden darkness is the one in control though. Be careful. But what could the hidden darkness be for this girl? Was she even okay? Oh, what the some type of bee? He asked himself when he saw the girl freaking out about a bug that disappeared and the girl went rigid. Did it crawl inside of her? Gross. Oh crap, I forgot. I gotta get to my part-time job. The girl said to her friends, who looked confused as she ran off. Naruto's frown deepened as he followed her down an alley, still watching her from the rooftops. The malice coming off this girl was rising as she smirked and looked at something on the other side of the alley. Looking himself, he saw it was Jube and some smaller kid than him. Could that kid be the eel boy they were talking about? Suddenly, Naruto heard the loud buzzing of bees, and he inwardly panicked that he was going to be stung or that he had been caught. He swatted one away, but the chaos was already ensuing because as random people were going stung, their quirks were going haywire, and naturally everyone started to freak out. The girl, however, was as calm as a cucumber. She walked towards Eel Boy as Jube ran away to take cover, and something in Naruto told him to take a picture of that as they spoke amongst the chaos. Naruto freaked out though when he saw a large victim of the rampage become bigger and he was heading right for them. As he rushed to the edge of the roof, Naruto was ready to jump in until a bunch of heroes appeared down the street and quickly took them all down. It was All Might that took down the biggest of them all, saving the girl he was tracking and the kid. However, he freaked out a bit when he saw they were suddenly gone, having used the chaos to escape. Oh come, where did they go? Naruto complained and unfortunately, All Might heard him as he looked up to Naruto's voice. The blonde suddenly remembered that he did not have his hood up, but the damage was already done. The next thing he knew, All Might had grabbed him and had taken him away from everything else, just a block down the road. What are you doing here, Naruto? You are kind of far from school and home. Would you believe me if I said one of my self-defense teachers told me to meet them around here? Naruto asked. Kaina did mention that, All Might mused. Before I get over to them, will you let Sir know that I saw something weird before this all went down? Naruto asked. And what would that be? All Might asked, perplexed that he would know what happened. Also, why was he on the roof to begin with, and why mention anything to Night Eye? Some girl with a bee quirk unleashed her bees from her eye, and when they stung people, all this happened. I was going to ask her about it, but that big guy started losing it and I was going to rush in to help before you jumped on him. I already sent the pictures I took to Sir. I just figured since you were going back soon, you could give him the context. That is all very concerning, thank you for the help, but why were you going? Where did he go? All Might shouted to himself after pondering about the situation in his head. He took his eyes off Naruto for just a moment and he was gone. Why was Naruto investigating this? Why did he try to hide his identity from him before? Night Eye knew something, he would get the answers from him. Naruto was too young to be getting in the middle of this investigation. Still, how did he do that disappearing act? Nah, I mean, Akatsuki, are you okay? You didn't get caught up in that sudden outburst of instant villains, did you? Pop Step shouted after noticing Naruto was behind her, before running up to make sure he was not hurt or anything. She was like a doting big sister. Huh, so that is what they felt like. Nah, I am okay, there must have been a cop on the scene already that called it in because a ton of heroes showed up, Naruto replied and then turned to Koichi and stared at him teasingly. Including All Might. Oh, I missed it, I could have gotten him to sign my hoodie. Koichi whined from his seat at the cafe they decided to sit at. They all noticed that Knuckledister plopped down next to them, more in a mood than normal. Naruto frowned at that. They were supposed to be catching the distributors of Trigger in the area and finding his missing daughter. There was one thing they could track right now. Pop, will you bring up the photos of all the incidents, including the one just witnessed? I will tell you why in a moment. As Pop did that, Jube came to sit with them and whispered something to his friend, making them both look nervous. So nervous in fact that they also gave Knuckledister a wide berth. Okay, here are the most recent ones, taken from different angles. Man, those poor people, that looked rough this time. Pop Step replied with a grimace. Was there one taken of a big guy that was taken out quickly, that one All Might took down? Yes, actually, there is a before and after. Pop muttered as she looked at the photo more closely. Hey wait, is that Eel Boy and that girl we ran into that wanted my picture? That seemed to catch Koichi and Knuckledister's attention. Yeah, check for more incident photos with her in them, Naruto ordered, making everyone look at him weirdly. When Jube looked at him, Naruto continued. Were you with Eel Kid or was it Ichimoku, since you were bringing him? It was me, but then those bees came and we got separated. Was actually hoping he ran here like me. Kinda worried for the kid. He was nice. Jube muttered. Naruto's frown deepened, but Pop's gasp caught their attention. It is mostly that creep in the suit, but there are a few with her in the photos. Just her, not that creep. Who is she? She is the one who unleashed the bees and caused that chaos. She also took Eel Boy away in the chaos. Naruto announced, causing them all to freak out. Shit. Knuckledister screamed as he slammed his fist down on the table so hard it caused a dent. Did you take a better picture of her? Also, how did you know to follow her? Pop Step asked. Naruto grumbled a bit that he was telling them a secret. I can't feel emotions and the power of quirks. It was fuzzy, but it felt like she had too, and her emotions were pretty dark. He replied as he fished his phone out to show them the photos. Pop, she seemed focused on you, so stick with us more and be careful. Here is what she looks like. He placed his phone on the table and they studied it intensely. Ichimoku and Jube confirmed that they didn't know her and that she didn't go to their school. Their uniforms were different. Pop and Koichi confirmed that was the girl they met earlier. It was Knuckleduster that had the most reaction to the girl mystery girl. Naruto could see the full recognition on his face, and his emotions were that of happiness and anger. Seeing that he was staring, Iwao drugged him off to the side so they wouldn't be overheard. Before you ask kid, yeah, I know her. She is my daughter. At least we have a lead on her now. Naruto deduced. But are we sure she is the one in control? She is not acting like my daughter, even changed her look a bit, but I know that is her, Knuckleduster replied quietly. It is as I feared, that B-user is controlling her. Alright, then let us get with the others to try and track her down. Do you want them to know of your connection? Naruto asked. Knuckleduster chuckled and smiled gratefully for Naruto's discretion. Not right now. I have my own plan to get to her, but let's see what they got. Thanks kid. Kaina was right in having you along. Kaina walked into Sir Night Eye's office with a frown as she watched him look at his phone and then write something down. Alright, I have to ask, Mirai. What is wrong? Ever since you looked into Naruto's future, you have been off. Mirai froze for a moment and then quietly put his pen and phone down. You noticed that, did you? Ever the observant one, eh? Kind of part of me since the commission trained me to be that way. Yeah, you have been more rigid as of late, and despite sending Naruto over to Naruto, you seem oddly protective of him. Like you regret sending a kid over there. But he is not a kid, is he? Night Eye replied quietly, making Megan gasp. He tells you about his past at some point, doesn't he? Kaina asked, a bit solemn. Indeed. He puts his trust in all of us. I will not let him down, which is why I sent a text to him, ordering him to take out that B-user when he or Iwao finds her. Mirai explained. He will have enough problems to deal with, I would rather cut down on the heartache. He may not be bound to fate, but others are. And Toshinori, you have never been good at stealth, get in here. Yeah, not one of my strong suits. All Might grumbled as he walked into the room to see an amused Kaina, while Mirai just rolled his eyes. I just caught Naruto in Naruto. Why did you send him there? What's this about his past? Mirai looked at Kaina first and she nodded, because I know he can handle it. He was a child soldier. The room seemed too still for a moment as All Might took that information in. However, it just gave him time to grow angrier and angrier. How could you? Because he is not just a child. In the future, he will tell us about his real past. That he was almost 18, that he was subject to irrational hatred for something he had no control over, that despite his home raising him to be their weapon, he gained friends and fought for them more than some petty village, even when it was leveled to the ground, multiple times. Mirai shouted at his friend, tears in his eyes, which stopped All Might in his tracks. It also shocked Kaina that this affected her friend so much. He is a lot like you, heroic to a fault. He also enjoys a good battle, so I doubt I could stop him if I tried. The day All Might started after a moment, I caught him attempting to get in on the action of that mass breakout of instant villains, while also surveying the one who set it off in the first place. I took him away before he could though, and I feel I was out of line, I was just worried for the boy. I see, that is very like you. Night Eye responded, but chose not to reveal to the man that it was because of him, the B-user got away and kidnapped a recent victim of hers. He could not see that going well. Plus, All Might could not predict stuff like that. He was a great hero but he could be rather dumb at times. Kinda Mirai, can I ask you something? All Might asked. You just did, but go ahead. Kinda joked, making them smirk. What if I chose him as my successor? Toshinori asked. Kinda frowned though at this. Since learning of his quirk, she feared who he would eventually give it to, but giving it to her son, that made her worry for both of their sanities. Naruto had been powerful before and to just take more like that she didn't know how to react. Why? Her own question brought Mirai out of his own thoughts. All Might took a seat and frowned. I have realized I am getting older, I am slower than I used to be. It got me thinking about what or who would be a good replacement for the symbol of peace. I know I can't be it for the rest of my life, even if I would gladly give it up just to save more people. The public is blind to that, and after hearing about your time in the commission, I fear what they will do once I step down. Since being around you and Naruto, I feel a little more at ease seeing some of the new generation. Given his personality, I figure he would be perfect, especially after what you told me. Also, I will keep him from knowing I know about his past until he is ready to tell me. That could be good. I honestly did not go but a few years into his future, but what I saw was acceptable. Mirai stated with a smirk of his own. A younger symbol of peace could do so much good, maybe even inspire others. If he does, he would not be the only pillar. Though I do suggest looking into the past holders of One for All, it will not go how you think. Another younger symbol of peace, Kaina responded after a moment before getting in his space. I will agree if you do not push your own master's views on him. I just got my son, I will not stand by as you fill his head with nonsense about being alone. I agree with Mirai, he will not be alone if I have anything to say about it. I can accept that. He has a good head on his shoulders already. All Might replied with a shrug. Good, now get out of that costume. We are getting some ice cream. Kaina replied with some determination. What, why? Why do I need to be in civilian clothes? All Might replied a bit meekly. Kaina rounded on him again while pointing at his face, cowing anything he was going to say. All you do is your job, you don't even have a life. You have been nothing but the symbol of peace for so long, you deserve a break. You don't have to live as your master did. You are going to get into some civilian clothes, go out there with me, and have some ice cream. Even if I have to force you. All Might stammered out and one look from Mirai told him all that he needed to know. Sir Knight, I agreed with Lady Nagant, the traitor with his grin. But Kaina was right, if he were to ever retire, he needed to learn how to relax and pick up a hobby. His on-the-job friend could be a real friend. He could live with that. Yes ma'am. Good, I'll meet you out front. Kaina replied before they both left the room to change. Mirai chuckled to him in the now quiet room. I needed that laugh. Naruto was walking home from another night of vigilantism as he thought about his vigilante friends. Koichi was improving on his slide and glide quirk a lot more these days. Mostly by gaining speed and some maneuverability, but that was still progress. Still, it was hilarious to see him get excited to take down some high-speed bad guy that the Idaten Hero Agency was after. It was fun quickly taking that guy down and to see Koichi silently thank Tensei Ida for the help in learning more about his quirk from a run-in on the street. However, Naruto noticed that Koichi's quirk was almost like the diva path of the Rinnegan. Those attractive and repulsive forces. So far, he has only seen big applications from his enemies. That led Naruto to question if he could do those small things like Koichi and those other guys did. He would have to practice in the Might Tower gym on account of his Akatsuki persona already being able to summon beasts and the small applications of his Asura path. Considering All For One was still alive, that man might take an interest in him if word got out that he could do all these things. Nobody wanted that, but to Naruto, it sounded like an inevitability given that high-ranking heroes already know him from past experience. That and anyone with a unique quirk caught his attention. Naruto would probably meet him anyway, go figure. Although, Naruto doubted he could steal something that was not a quirk. Better safe than sorry though. He could also take a page from Pop's step and use her leaps as something useful when using Diva Path. That would still be useful despite the fact that as a ninja, he could jump pretty high with chakra. Any trick that he could work in his future fighting style would still be useful and help to throw off any adversary he was to gain. Finally, there was Knuckleduster. That man was a good fighting instructor, just like Rumi was. However, when it came to investigations, he kept a lot of it to his chest. He really only shared what little bit he knew with Naruto because the blonde was genuinely trying to find the man's daughter. However, after the abduction of the eel kid, Knuckleduster became slightly angrier and was off on his game a bit. However, with weak villains like the three Sturm and Drang brothers, he could not go all out and had to keep a lot of his power and anger in check. No, they would have died if the old man had not done that. Thankfully there had been a stronger villain he could take his anger out on a few days after that. And that guy had been a real junkie, they later found out, so it was no wonder why the guy had been so strong. Even though the instant villain had a strength enhancement quirk like Granny Tsunade in which they built up power and release at a single point, the man had been too slow, allowing Knuckleduster to finally let loose. The junkie was made quick work of after that and his teacher's mood brightened up. We need to catch whoever is dealing out this trigger crap, this is the second time we've dealt with that rockhead and he was stronger this time. I had to really beat him down before he got to Koichi and Pop, that really hurt though. Still, it was good work you did there, kid. A voice from the alley said, pulling Naruto on edge as he looked to see who it was. Blinking, Naruto deadpanned at the sight of the one guy that helped out in that battle by distracting that rockhead by sending a knife into his eye. Good thing Naruto still had the sun symbol on his hand to be able to heal the eye so the instant villain could at least see again. It was the violent vigilante named Stendhal. A man dressed in red and black with a sharp-looking black mask and armed to the teeth with knives and a long katana. Oh, the urban ninja dude. Thanks for the distraction. Naruto replied casually. You have got conviction, kid, I like that. Too bad you did not kill him like you should have. The man replied menacingly. He can live for now. Those on trigger need to die. A frown laced Naruto's lips. You do realize that more than half the instant villains are actually victims, with only a few being actual bloodthirsty villains, Naruto replied and brought out a kunai to block the man's swift incoming sword. But judging from that bloodlust of yours, you don't see that. So you are better than I thought, kid. Most heroes lack the conviction to do what is necessary, which leads to people like me to clean up their mess. Permanently. You and Knuckleduster see it, but you will learn soon what needs to be done. I, Stendhal, will do what needs to be done. Killing is rather illegal. You sure you are on the side of good? Naruto asked as he put a hand out and aimed the palm at Stendel's chest. Just being near the guy was mentally exhausting. Even his quirk radiated bloodlust and felt twisted. Besides, with power, it is too easy to kill. You need to learn to keep that bloodlust in check or it will get you hurt one day. Almighty push. Naruto ended was a small blast of repulsive energy to send the masked vigilante back into the alleyway. You might be right, but I have my convictions. I will clean this city up. Be sure to stay out of the way. Stendhal replied as he slunk back into the shadows. Why do I get the feeling that he is going to be an issue later? Naruto asked himself in a worried but bored tone. He probably should not have used the diva path on that guy either, but what was done was done. After a moment of walking again, he got a call from his mom saying that they made a bit of progress with one of the pills and that he should head over to Might Tower to check it out. Naruto shrugged and headed that way, but his mind went to the perverts that had the same quirk as Koichi, messing with girls and taking their panties for shits and giggles. He didn't understand the need for used underwear like that, but chalked it up to Jiraiya's form of degeneracy. He idly wondered if he should release the man's book series to give them an outlet so they weren't total perverts in public. It worked for Kakashi and Abisu, so who knows? Oh? Did they involve you? That makes sense given your medical knowledge. Naruto stated once he was in Might Tower and no longer dressed up as Akatsuki. As to who he was talking to, it was Recovery Girl. I am glad Tashi is surrounding himself with people that have brains, dearie. Mr. Shield was a good start, but to see Mirai, Kaina, and now you warms my heart. Gran Torino is a good man, but could not impart a brain to young Tashi. Shame. Also, I am glad I got to meet the boy who gave us another leap in the medical industry. These blood pills are a brilliant idea. Recovery Girl replied as she led him down the hall to Might Tower's medical facilities. Yeah, my village thought so too, Naruto replied with a shrug. Right now, I am helping a friend whose blood quirk has made life difficult for them. So, I have heard. Recovery Girl stated with a frown. Although we try to help those whose quirks are dangerous to themselves, some slip through the cracks, especially when parents deem the quirk not to their liking. Some even abuse their children because of it. By the time we catch that horrendous act, the child is already on the path to being a villain. Some just go crazy because their parents make them suppress it, which never works the way they want. Or they are dead. Poor things. As Naruto and Recovery Girl walked into the infirmary, he barely noticed that a large TV was on with David's shield on it looking at them. He was in his mind, worrying about Himiko and how she has been treated by her own family. He jumped a bit when Kaina put her hand on his shoulder to get his attention back on track. She nodded though, having heard how the conversation went and how it was affecting him. The look in her eyes stood him she understood and was with him on that wavelength. David just smiled at the interaction between the mother and son. Being a single parent, he understood more than they thought. Naruto, I want to thank you for this project. It will help a great number of people, especially since we have something to go off. Analyzing this blood pill was a huge step forward and I have sent you a prototype of our version. Only, it is with animal blood, specifically a cardinal. You will have to ask your friend if they can transform into animals, which could be very useful later on. I did not want to give her human blood just yet. Would you bring her here after school tomorrow to test this? Sure I can. We have a group day where we just exercise after school. I will bring her. Do you mind if I take it so we can test it on the way? Naruto asked. If Recovery Girl believes it is okay. If anything were to go wrong, it is why I had her come over for this test, just so you know. David replied. I am sure everything will be fine, Naruto assured them. Oh, by the way, Mom, I met an interesting vigilante on the way here. Kaina raised an eyebrow at that and asked, interesting how and why are you telling me this now? Naruto shrugged. Figured I get your opinion since the guy's bloodlust was off the charts. He called himself Stendhal. Oh my. Recovery Girl replied with a grimace. However, Kaina just smacked her face. I should have killed that one when I had the chance. Listen to me Naruto, you steer clear of that one, he is nothing but bad news. Plus, he is insane. I noticed. Naruto deadpanned. Izuku. Pick up the pace. Naruto yelled to his friend on the school's track field. The school was out and they were having a joint training day. Naruto felt it prudent that the green-haired kid gained more speed as the style of fighting he was learning relied on it. Hitachi is going to overtake you if you are not careful. He looks like he is losing stamina. Himiko replied next to him. Mei was close by and when she heard that, she smirked and doubled down on a device she was working on. Losing stamina? The kid should be in the running club. A student from the bleachers shouted. Come on Izuku, last stretch. Push that tired body. Naruto encouraged with a smirk. Izuku really was working harder than the rest of their friends. Naruto often pushed the boy harder, not because he was quirkless, but because the boy himself still felt useless. Naruto didn't see that and often told him that, especially after he pushed himself in a random exercise the blonde thought up. The boy's body was also becoming as sharp as his mind. Izuku panted hard as he saw the end of the track was near, but he felt weak. His entire body and his mind were starting to go hazy. He heard his friend encourage him, but it did not register. All he felt was a fuzzy and hazy feeling all around him as his eyes gained tunnel vision for the end of the line and was soon just feeling static. After this, he could take a much-needed break. "I just need to," he breathed out tiredly. Itachi heard this and grimaced. His friend had a one-track mind when he became this tired and he often worried about him, but once it was done, he recovered very quickly. It was odd. Wait, speaking of, as he heard this, he thought he heard static generating. Looking toward his buddy, Hitashi's eyes widened as he saw Izuku's body covered in green static. He was so shocked, he slowed down to a complete stop, catching the attention of the others. "That there." Izuku finished his line of thought as his vision went blurry and he felt himself blacking out. Boom. The next thing anyone knew was the deafening bang of an emerald green lightning bolt that struck down on Izuku and he was gone. Boom. Not even a second later and another emerald green lightning bolt touched down just past the finish line. All was quiet for a few seconds as everyone registered what the hell they just witnessed. Either a villain had randomly attacked kids at a school or Izuku finally had his quirk activated. Not that it mattered to Naruto though as he let his true speed shine and he was at Izuku's side before anyone knew it. "Izuku, are you alright?" Naruto screamed down into the smoking crater that the lightning formed when it crashed down. Both of those lightning bolts were way more powerful than they should have been. If Itachi had not stopped when he did, he would be in the crater of the first lightning bolt and probably dead. Naruto attributed this to either Izuku having a powerful quirk or the first time result was the built-up power due to Izuku not releasing it at the age of 4 years old like everyone else. That meant the build-up of 5 years' worth of power. "Why yeah? What happened? Why am I suddenly in a crater?" Izuku asked loudly out in panic. Seeing the smoke dissipate, Naruto laughed to himself a bit as seeing Izuku flat on his back with a bewildered expression. He was fine even if his gym clothes looked a little singed and roughed up. It was a relief to see him okay. Not long after, Hitachi, Himiko, and Mei joined them. Naruto smirked at their wide-eyed looks that he was indeed okay. Looking around, Naruto also confirmed that there were no villains around, just random students who looked like gaping fish. He couldn't blame them. "Congrats are in order, Izuku, looks like you finally got your quirk." Izuku himself gained the same gaping fish look, while Himiko and Mei cheered for him. Hitachi gained one of the biggest grins he could get, which admittedly looked a little creepy with his constant eye bags, but at this point, he did not care, especially as he let out some built-up tears after only a few years of abuse that forced his mother to move them away. If that hadn't happened, he and Hadashi would have met. Hitachi was proud that his first friend had finally got his quirk after being quirkless for so long. Was he jealous? A bit, but that was largely overshadowed by happiness. In a way, they could protect each other now. "Pretty sure the build-up destroyed the track field, but hey, you can't predict this shit." Naruto replied while asking some of the assorted students to go and tell a teacher what happened so they do not think a villain attacked their little school for no reason. "That is very possible," Izuku replied tiredly, but then a frown marred his face. "Having a quirk finally is great, but now I can't move." As Naruto loaded Izuku on his back, he chuckled at that while Hitachi said, "Given that you blasted the place up pretty good, that makes a bit of sense. You released a ton of energy, man. However, I am surprised you are not freaking out about all this, including not being able to move." "Trust me, I am," Izuku replied with a tired smile. "On the inside anyway, but I am too tired to really do anything." "Right, well, let's get you to a doctor." Naruto stated. "Himiko, I was going to tell you after practice, but this is a good surprise too. We got a prototype for the blood pill, so you should come too." "Are you kidding? We are all coming." Himiko shouted in glee, while Hitachi and Mei nodded along in their own agreement. Mei more so in regards to seeing how they managed to perfect the blood pill. "Someone call my mom, she'll get us into my doctor," Izuku stated just as tiredly. "The same guy who crushed your dreams by telling you that you were quirkless." "Nah, that guy is full of shit." Naruto deadpanned, getting a chuckle out of Hitachi. "Language," Izuku replied lazily. "But where do you suggest we go?" Naruto smirked while turning to leave. "Japanese and my mom's job." "Oh, and Izuku, I will need you to promise me something. Don't freak out." "I'm not sure I can do that, why?" "My mom works at Might Tower, she is Lady Nagant," Naruto replied, making the green-haired boy's eyes widen comically before going half Latin. "I get it now. I will try, but let me process this new information." With that, Izuku nodded off. "Himiko, I also want to test this new blood pill on the way, that okay with you?" Naruto asked as he tossed her the pill. Himiko looked at it in wonder for a moment before she let her craving for blood finally take over and chomped on the pill with gusto. Himiko hummed in delight. The feeling of relief hit her like a truck when she finally just let go and enjoyed whatever blood was in this pill. It was heavenly. No, seriously, it tasted like the person belonged in the sky. It tasted familiar. That was made from animal blood, just so you know. Can you transform into them? Naruto asked, kind of annoyed that Himiko did not let him say that before she ate it. I have no idea, but I did drink the blood of a dying bird when I was a little girl and had no adverse effects. Himiko replied after a moment. Of course, she had not had much of that before her parents took it away in disgust. Thankfully, they didn't have to wait long for the results of her actions of eating the blood pill, because she quickly shifted into that of a cardinal and left her clothes behind. Oh, I can see that being an issue later. Hitachi deadpanned as he picked up her clothes and put them in his backpack he had retrieved earlier. He then chuckled to himself as he picked up Himiko's bird form and she just kept on tweeting in excitement. Sorry, I can't understand you. That seemed to quiet her for just a moment before she jumped into his hair to use as a nest, making the others laugh. Please don't poop in my hair. He groaned out but still smiled as she began to sing. One problem at a time. We will figure it all out in due time. Still, this is amazing. She can turn into animals. I wonder for how long? May asked herself out loud. I really need to get my prototype to stop exploding so I can test it. Or I can find a way to use the effect heh. That didn't bode well with anyone's nerves. Well, if it isn't Deku. Whoa, man, check it out, he is still so useless, he has to be carried around now. What a joke. A voice rang out, disrupting the comfortable silence that had befallen the group as they made their way to Might Tower. On the sidewalk ahead of them were 3 male figures, and the one who spoke was a black-haired kid that let it grow out to his shoulders, and it was obvious his quirk lay with his fingers as they had grown out to point mockingly at the paralyzed Izuku. Naruto heard Izuku wake up only to whimper in both annoyance and fear. It did not sit well with him, especially the nickname that was placed upon his green-haired friend. There is no one here by that name. What? Are you blind, you whisker-faced bastard? The obvious leader of their group roared out, his red eyes staring at his fellow blonde in rage, and his hands began setting off mini explosions, something that Izuku shivered at. Both Naruto and Hitachi noticed this with frowns marring their faces as they began to figure things out. This was Izuku's tormentor. The worthless quirkless Deku that is on your back. I don't know if you are friends with that trash, but let me tell you that he is worth much less than the dirt I walk on. Or did you already figure that out? He looks roughed up enough, did you do that, Whiskers? Show him his place, which is under anyone with a quirk's thumb. Bitsuki, it is not like that. Naruto here is helping me figure things out since my quick activated but it paralyzed me. Izuku replied tiredly but with some anger in his eyes. Something Katsuki bristled at, but silently noted that Izuku didn't call him Kachin like he used to. What was that, you useless nerd? Katsuki roared. Have a quirk now? Well, good for you, do you think that you are better than me now, fat chance? Did it paralyze you just from using it? It is just as useless as you. That's a laugh, you really are a worthless Deku. You are pissing me off, I suggest you leave. Naruto replied too calmly for anyone's liking, but to Katsuki, he might as well be staring at the devil from how much killing intent Naruto was sending at Katsuki, making him freeze in place as the world seemed to be warped and twist Naruto's visage into something horrific. It was like all his nightmares all jumped out of the ether to mock him in real life. It sent a near-paralyzing chill down his back, and he didn't like that. Was that the whiskered blonde's quirk? He'd eventually find a way through it and kill that bastard. So, it was you, where do you get off? Hitachi asked with a growl, letting Naruto cut off the killing intent before he did something they would regret. What was all Katsuki got out before he went still, and his eyes were fuzzy. You and your lackeys go home. I do not want to deal with this right now. Hitachi growled out and Katsuki, mechanically like a robot, started walking home. It left his aforementioned lackeys in a state of confusion and they followed to make sure he was okay. However, they never touched the boy to get him out of that state of control and eventually just left. The explosive kid would only be woken up by a slap from his mother for not responding to her. It would leave the kid in a state of confusion for quite a while and have nightmares from the feeling of the killing intent he endured. Naruto, however, was already making plans as to how he would prank or just deal with him in the future. Hey, is that kid alright? He had green sparks running over his back. Another young voice shouted out, halting the group yet again. However, this voice wasn't mean or condescending, it was more worried. Himiko turned to the guy first and smiled at him. We were taking him to the doctor because his quirk paralyzed him. She then noticed that the person talking was another blondie like her and Naruto with a black streak that was in the shape of a lightning bolt. He also wore a pair of black shorts and a white t-shirt. Ah, I guess that makes sense now. His back had green static all over it. Static? Naruto asked. It could be left over from the lightning bolt discharge. Wait, the kid has an electric quirk like me, the new guy replied excitedly before he scratched his head. I guess my mom was right, our quirk can be dangerous to ourselves after all. How do you mean? Hitachi asked, a bit worried for his friend. Take me for example. Right now, I can only expel all my bioelectricity at once. And when I do that, I become dumb like a box of rocks according to my mother. The boy replied nervously. And I can't control it that much, which results in fried electronics. What's your name? Izuku suddenly asked tiredly. I am Denki Kaminari. The blonde stated with a big smile. I am guessing overuse of your quirk drains all of your energy to do anything and paralyzes you. Man, that kinda sucks. I am Izuku Midoriya. The green-haired boy replied. May, do you think we could help him with his issue? Oh. A challenge, I am sure we could come up with something. May replied excitedly and started writing something in a notebook. A definite maybe. Replied the lethargic boy. Kaminari, will you give Hitachi your phone number, that way we can contact you when we do think of something. Sure thing, man. Any help would be great. You know, all this energy I have makes things like sitting still a chore. Denki stated as he patted Izuku's back and the contact left a spark and Izuku felt a bit more energetic. Whoa. Izuku grinned at his new friend. I am sure we can think of a way to help each other. Heck man, always great to have a new friend with a similar quirk. Denki shouted with a pumped fist in the air. Naruto just smiled to himself, this was going well. Way better than the last interruption. Young man, you clearly have a quirk, just a late bloomer. Why would your doctor think that you do not? Recovery girl asked, looking over at Izuku. When Naruto brought all his friends instead of just the girl, her and Kaina were rather confused. That is until the blonde explained that Izuku activated his quirk for the first time and was paralyzed because of it. Her medical side came to life and quickly got to work in dealing with the situation, ordering Kaina to bring the green-haired boy to the infirmary. The test results for Himiko could wait. If I remember correctly he said so because of the foot joint test. Izuku elaborated. That test, Chio muttered in annoyance as she looked him over and got a few things ready to cure his quirk-induced paralysis. They had made special devices for those with electricity-based quirks. That is not the end-all, be-all of the tests, just the most common one. Tell me, did your doctor use any other tests? No, Izuku muttered as the world was coming back into view from this revelation. I might not have been in the best state of mind either. Once he said I wouldn't have a quirk, I just shut down for a while. I see, Chio replied sadly. That doctor was just being lazy then. He could have suggested another one of the few tests there are. Even then, there are late bloomers like you. In those cases, it can manifest in a few different ways. One of them is a life and death situation, but I doubt Naruto would put you in one, and you don't seem like the type to put yourself in one. No ma'am. The one that seems most plausible is that you kept pushing yourself to the edge of pure exhaustion multiple times to force your body to be ready until it finally unlocked. Chio deduced. I guess that makes sense. Izuku replied absent-mindedly, not aware of the fact that recovery girl was attaching suction cups connected to wires all over his body, such was his tired state. My martial arts teacher has been pushing me rather hard with a style she and Naruto helped pick out for me. A Chinese martial art called Huquan or Monkey Kung Fu. They both believe that I can do it, even though I was quirkless. Naruto most of all because he gave me exhausting and nearly impossible challenges, even when I was already tired. I guess pushing me to that point actually worked. Indeed, it did. Chio replied with a smile as she pushed a button on the machine, causing Izuku's body to jerk around as his body was forcefully given the electricity he used. After a moment, he moved his hand to his head as he had gained a headache. Wait, I can move again. Izuku shouted in glee, no longer feeling tired or sluggish. Yeah, now we can do a test of our own to see what your quirk really is. Chio replied with a smile. While Izuku and Chio were doing tests, the rest of the group was in another room with a TV, which once again had David's shield on it. Something that May had stars in her eyes for as he was an idol of sorts for all inventors. Eri confirmed on Himiko being able to transform into animals, David replied as he wrote something down on his end, but smiled as Himiko sang loudly in response. Hitachi, was it? You mentioned that her clothes did not transform with her. Yes, sir. And no, they did not, we brought them along because we knew that was going to be an issue later. Hitachi replied as he smiled at Himiko nesting in his hair again after flying around for a bit. He was getting too used to strange things in his life. That should not be too much of an issue down the line. DNA doping hero suits has become much easier now that we know what we are doing. I am sure we can create a suit just for her when the time comes. David replied with a smile. Naruto, we are now closer to getting the blood pills to be complete. Next is the human blood phase. I will infuse some of mine in my daughter's blood to see how they work for her. If that works, then we can work on amounts and timing, since I believe there is a time limit for her quirk. And the other project? Naruto asked. Right, the food pills. Those were really packed with calories and other concentrated nutrients. To say nothing of the 3 super versions you gave me. David replied, an amazed look on his face. But we got the normal ones to work for now and we have 2 versions. The food pill and superfood bar. You know, in case there are those that would rather do one or the other. These pills are causing quite a stir, Naruto. It is why I made sure that you were the known inventor of these, and many are very curious and how we could all use these for hero work and general health reasons. The same could be said for the medical industry. Do not be surprised when All Might invites you to a mixer of sorts with high society to fundraise this project so we can get these produced everywhere. 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 Wow, I didn't expect that. Naruto muttered before a thought struck him. May, don't you want to be involved in this? Nah, not really, May replied cheerfully. I merely wanted to see if I could recreate it as a challenge. So far they have all had explosive type effects. The real treat for me is meeting a famous inventor from my island and hearing all this business talk. I will be famous for my own mechanical inventions. Plus, the explosive pills give me some ideas. Wow, you sound exactly like my own daughter, David replied with a booming laugh. She'll either have a rival or a business partner in you. Why not both? We could challenge each other. Make us be better. May replied excitedly, making David laugh harder. You sure are interesting, want me to give you her number so you could talk? David asked. Yes please. May replied happily. This way, it was not just her and Izuku as the brains of the group. Oh my god, it is David's shield. Speaking of Izuku, he and Recovery Girl just walked in and of course, the boy was starstruck already. Wait, that could have happened as well when he met Recovery Girl. Yes, enough with the hero worship for a few moments please, Chio said between giggles of her own. And thank you, David, for having Quirk registering equipment placed here in case of emergencies. It made my job so much easier. Ah yes, the boy Naruto brought in. You're welcome Chio. What are his results? I am quite curious. Well, it is powerful, I will tell you that, Chio replied, making Izuku rub his head in embarrassment. We are calling it Thunder Step for now. As for what it does, it causes young Midoriya here to expel a small amount of static that attracts the rest of the quirk to function. It attracts lightning from the air to crash down and teleports him to an area he has in mind. He could also take the energy from the very earth itself with enough training. Similar to a very specific part of the world where lightning has struck the earth so many times, it causes lightning to strike the air from the earth itself. It makes me wonder if his quirk will be able to generate lightning from other sources in the future. I am pretty sure the range of this is rather short, unlike most teleportation quirks. However, that is what gives it the edge as he can also store that energy for later. I am sure his storage capacity and tolerance will increase as he grows older. Man, that is a pretty powerful, Hitachi replied in a bit of awe. That type of quirk was unexpected from someone like Izuku because he honestly unexpected his friend to have a super intelligence quirk. Something that was quiet and worked with his muttering habit. Not something super loud every time he used it. There go my daytime naps. The room erupted in laughter, including the tweeting of Himiko. Near the door, Kaina smiled happily at the group of friends her son had made. They were all good kids and did her heart good that they all got along. She could also see how they needed each other. Turning to see All Might about to enter, she put a hand to his chest. Hold on, pretty sure you'd give that electric kid an aneurysm if you entered now. A cloud of cloud smoke erupted in the room as bird Himiko disappeared and regular Himiko fell into Hitashi's arms. Oh. Nice catch. My hero. She joked with a shit-eating grin because she knew she was naked and in his arms. You got me, now what are you going to do with me? The result was Naruto dragging Hitachi out of the room over his shoulder because the purple-haired kid wasn't ready for that and fainted on the spot. That and the room's lights flicked violently as Izuku used his quirk to loudly teleport outside the room. All Might. Izuku shouted, much to the man's amusement. I guess it is too late for that. All Might laughed out loud as Kaina shook her head and entered the room to help a laughing Himiko, while Mei just seemed confused at everyone's reactions. Kaina smirked as a green-haired woman hurried into Might Tower with a frantic look on her face. Oh, that is defiantly the Green Bean's mom. Indeed. It is no wonder they were so easily manipulated into believing that Izuku was quirkless. They are both very emotional. Chio replied with a sad smile as she watched Izuku reunite with his mother. Yeah, Kaina replied before walking over to the two of them, chuckling as Izuku frantically showed his mother the autograph he got not only from All Might, but Mirai, Chio, and herself as well. Mrs. Midoriya. Oh? Yes. Replied the timid woman. Kaina smiled and relaxed her body posture so she could calm the other woman down in a sense. It was a treat helping Izuku with his new quirk. My son helped him activate it and brought him here to be looked after for just in case. Recovery girl over there is a brilliant medical mind. Activate his quirk, but I thought he was quirkless. This is wonderful. Inko cried as she hugged her baby boy tightly. Were there any issues? Just some minor paralysis since there had been some buildup and the sudden release caused that. As I said there, recovery girl knows her stuff and helped Izuku with his new thunder step. I have to ask though, do you or your husband have an electricity quirk? No. I have minor telekinesis while my husband has fire breath. Inko replied with a confused expression before it became thoughtful. Hisashi's father did have the ability to absorb electricity and often used it in his electrician job. I guess it skipped a generation. His mother had a weak teleportation called flicker or blink. I don't remember it that well since she thought it was useless and never used it. Me on the other hand, I inherited a weaker version of my mother's quirk. Or so I am told. Truth is, I am adopted. I never knew either of my parents growing up, but I was told I was a Shimura and that I have a brother. I met him once, he wasn't pleasant. I think he took it far harder that he was given up as a child and wanted nothing to do with any of us. Around the corner, Toshinori nearly choked on air after hearing that tidbit of info. Nana had another child, with who? What was the joke Gran Torino used to say again? Ugh, he can't remember. But, if this woman was Nana's daughter, then he would have to get to know her. They were practically siblings. He'd also have to look into whatever happened to Nana's son. He had to officially meet his sister first. Thinking of a way to meet her without freaking her out, he let his huge buff form deflate until he was normal, but muscular man. Truly you are Nana's daughter? He asked with much hope in his eyes. He was so focused on Inko, he missed the shocked look Kaina gave him before that look turned mischievous. Yeah, at least it is what it says on my birth certificate. Inko replied with a shrug. Fantastic. Toshinori cheered. This could work. If he was making a network full of confidants, then One for All would have a harder time getting back at him. Kaina and Mirai were right. Plus, this could protect Inko and Izuku. If you want to know more about her, I would love to tell you for you see, she was my teacher and I practically saw her as my own mother. What he is saying is we would love to have you join us every now and then. Since our sons hang out, I feel it appropriate for us to at least be friends. Kaina replied humorously in an effort to calm Toshinori down so he didn't freak out Inko. Inko smiled tearfully and nodded. I would like that. It was not long after that when Kaina took Naruto and Himiko to the latter's home. After Himiko described her home life and how her parents made her hide her quirk and portray herself as normal, Kaina was pissed. She had seen quirk discrimination before and it never ended well for anyone involved. She often had to clean it up as it were. Luckily, Himiko had a friend in Naruto and she had grown to care for the girl when she came to the house to visit when they were home, that is. However, at the time, there was nothing to be done legally. Now there was a solution. Ah, so you are the famous Naruto I have been hearing about. My daughter talks about you and her other friends quite a lot. Himiko's dad, Mr. Toga, replied with a slight chuckle. I am led to believe she is quite popular, so that is a feat, my boy. And who is this lovely lady? I am Kaina, Naruto's mother, Kaina replied with a fake smile just as the man in front of her had. She could feel the slight malice the man hid well. She had learned to pick up on subtle things like that while in the commission and she could feel where it was directed. The kids have had an eventful day with one of their own, finally activating his quirk. I thought I would bring her home myself since I was doing that for the others. Plus, I would get to speak to you about a discovery my son made that could help your daughter. Ah, a late bloomer. Got it. The man confirmed after a moment with a fake smile. Thank you for bringing Himiko home, but the girl's mother is working late tonight, so it is just us. What is this news? To start off, Naruto spoke, bringing the man's attention to him. I know about her quirk, how it forces a craving for blood on her that is almost similar to what drugs do to junkies. Her quirk is not bad, it just has an unfortunate side effect to it. That being said, I have made something called a blood pill that can help out in daily life and if she wanted to use it as a hero. Right now it just uses animal blood, so it is progress. So you are saying there is a safe way to use her quirk? Mr. Toga muttered aloud as he thought about the implications of that after it was explained how Himiko's quirk actually worked and the need for blood was natural. Then they showed off one of the new blood pills that were being made. Even if you are consuming animal blood in these pills, I can't condone her quirk. It is unsightly and unnatural. Her mother even gained a fear of blood just from dealing with her. But to add, I want to be a hero so people don't have this stigma about blood quirks. Himiko defended herself. Oh? Like that fool, Vlad King, and his own blood quirk. Her father roared, an angry look overtaking his face. Quirks like that are just disgusting. Blood is meant to stay inside the body where it belongs, animal or human. You do understand this is Quirk discrimination, and she could have had help with it from the day she discovered it. Kaina replied with a calm look, but her eyes shined with her own anger. You think I care about that? Blood quirks are nothing but abominations. No daughter of mine could ever be a hero with a quirk that is unsightly. What would people think? Some freak thinking they are a hero when they are actually a villain. And it is thinking like that causes villains to be born, Naruto replied just as angrily. You try to hide and suppress them until their mind snaps. That is no way to live. And no abomination like that will live in my home. The man roared and panted for a moment. He saw the shocked looks Kaina and Naruto were giving him, but he could not help the sneer that formed on his face when he saw the girl's heartbroken look. In fact, if you care for this unsightly creature so damn much, then take her and get out of my sight. We will be glad to legally get rid of her. Emiko was the first to walk out of the house, almost mechanically as a shell-shocked expression overtook her face, tears continuously falling down her cheeks. Kaina watched Naruto run out to meet her, and the woman turned on Mr. Toga with absolute rage in her eyes as she grabbed his collar. You are a fool. That girl has been nothing but a good person, and you would willingly turn her into a villain because of your own selfish views. You are no father in my eyes, just a creep, and you are lucky you aren't being reported for abuse of a child. A child you helped create. She put a piece of paper in his hands before walking out. Think on that, buddy, while you send her stuff to this address. And even if you have a sudden change of heart, do not bother because she is my daughter now. The man stammered in fear that she could not do anything anyway, that is until she extended her arm so that a rifle was now pointing at his face, making him wet his pants in fear. Fear that he was going against a real hero. Kaina just sneered at him as she left, but that sneer was quickly wiped off her face when she saw Naruto hugging a sobbing Himiko out by their car. Her face gained a soft look as she kneeled next to them. Himiko, look at me please. The girl looked up and sniffed in a sob, but Kaina merely kept a soft smile on her lips. You are not a monster, so don't you dare take that evil man's words to heart. Naruto already accepts you and that is good enough for me. I accept you too, and if you are willing, I will gladly accept you into this family. Thank you. Himiko cried out as she hugged the both of them. Honestly, this was better than the alternative because she had been an outcast in her own home. Now she wasn't. She was accepted and that is all she ever wanted. A few nights later, Naruto was back in Naruto in such a better mood than before. Of course, Himiko had to be the first of his friends that learned he was the Akatsuki vigilante in Naruto, but she took it better than he thought she would. She had been excited that her new brother was somewhat famous, but promised to keep his identity secret for now. You are in a good mood. That why you are up here with me? Pop Step asked teasingly. Koichi is a good guy, but his oblivious comments can dampen the mood a bit. Naruto replied with a shrug as he and Pop Roof hopped to keep up with Koichi down on the ground. His quirk was making him faster, which was great. Still, they were hoping for a quiet night because Knuckledister said he would be late if he came at all. The reason for my good mood though is my mom and I helped out a classmate of ours, and now she is my sister. Aw, that is so cute. I am so happy for you. Pop gushed. Arg. You all are making me into a monster. A voice rang out into the night, making all three vigilantes jump in fright. They certainly were not expecting that, and there went their peaceful night. Running on the edge to a roof near where they heard the voice down below, Naruto and Pop Step frowned in annoyance. Naruto because he saw Stendhal down below and Pop Step because she recognized the guy he was fighting. And it seemed that Koichi did too. It was a street thug by the name of Soga, a kind of tormentor to Koichi and Pop Step. Naruto only knew about him from stories, but what really caught his attention was Soga's transformed state. He looked like a buff porcupine or hedgehog creature with red spiky hair, a furrin you prefer. As Koichi intercepted the fight, Naruto growled. This ain't good. Stendhal is liable to just kill Koichi for getting in his way. What? How do you know? Pop Step asked nervously and then really started freaking out when Stendhal took out his katana and slashed it into Soga's chest. However, before Stendhal could finish the job, Koichi tripped him and started running away with Soga. Because he attacked me a few days ago, going on and on about everyone's convictions and how we should just kill off our enemies. Pop, can you fight? Naruto asked. What? No, I just sing and make sure people are safe from the instant villains. Pop freaked out, especially when Stendhal used one of his knives and threw it into Koichi's leg, sending both him and Soga tumbling forward. TCH, that is fine, but for the future, you might want to learn how to fight for just in case. For now, go get a med kit or something, Koichi is going to need to get patched up that Soga guy too. Naruto stated before he jumped down, watching as Stendhal stopped at the blood spatter from Koichi and then licked it up, causing Koichi to freeze in place. Oh come now Stendhal, don't tell me you are also one of those Jashin fanatics. Akatsuki, I have no idea what a Jashin is, but what I do know is that you are helping them escape. Have you turned to the villain side as well? I thought you walked the path of justice like your master, Knuckledister. I thought your convictions were stronger than that. I guess you would not get that reference. Naruto drawled out, tapping a seal on his wrist under his sleeve to bring out a kunai. But I do walk the path of justice. I just don't let it turn me into a mad slasher with his bloodlust controlling him. My idea of justice has always been to defend people, especially those I call my friends. If Crawler is defending Spiky Boy as well, then so be it, and you really need to get off your high horse. Such noble convictions, even if you are defending villains. Stendhal growled out menacingly. I am sure the old man will agree with me. Naruto droned out as laughing Knuckledister dropped into the alley next to him. Damn straight, brat. We are baddest allies of justice. Knuckledister retorted with a big dark grin. You're just getting in my way. Stendhal roared out as he went to go slash him, but Naruto threw his kunai. The mad slasher realized too late that a piece of paper was attached to it as he dodged. It set off a low-level explosion that knocked Stendhal into the nearby wall, cracking both it and his mask, maybe even some of his bones. Oh hell yeah, kid. Now that is awesome. Knuckledister roared out with Koichi and Soga having to agree with that. Tricks like that will only get you so far, kid. Since you are siding with the villains, I will personally kill you. Stendhal raved out frantically, portions his mask had fallen off to show his partially burned face. Not that he seemed to notice that detail. DCH, some hero you are. Knuckledister commented as he threw out a piece of rope, marking a line between them and the mad slasher. A rope? Did you think a rope would stop me? Not really the point. You can walk away quietly now. That is option A. Knuckledister offered as an explanation. Or you can cross that line. And that's when you will eat a knuckle sandwich. I see, so that distance represents your attack range. Stendhal reasoned aloud, his thought process was sharp as ever, but he was letting his bloodlust through, making him sound more and more insane. Needless to say, it's a wall of steel. Every fiber of your being is ready to counter. That effectively cancels out my own weapon's advantages. So you leaving is the smartest option. Naruto taunted with a smirk. You would think so, however, I will cross it. My skills surpass ordinary understanding. He will never time it right to defend himself, and then you're all dead. Stendhal screamed as he rushed forward. Because a hero is an extraordinary being. Sublime. Transcendent. One who crosses boundaries. DCH. Knuckledister rushed in himself, momentarily catching Stendhal off guard as the muscular man mashed his face in, breaking away the rest of his mask and destroying his nose. He now had scars on one side of his face from the mini explosion and a caved-in nose from the punch, which pushed him flat on his back. Man, I noticed he had a high opinion of himself, but that was a bit much. Naruto grumbled as he picked up the fallen mask that fell near him. What was that, you guys? Koichi asked when he noticed he could move again. His leg was still in pain though, and that was not going away until he got that fixed. Didn't you tell him not to cross the line? Yeah, the rule did not apply to me though, so I hit him once I saw he was coming. Knuckledister said after a moment and looked at the mask Naruto was holding. Guys like that though, they really sink into a role when they wear something they feel makes them special. They may think they are immortal superhumans, but they are just trouble. I have already run into more than a few of them. Idly, Koichi gripped his All Might hoodie, hoping that he would not turn down that path, but the hoodies he wore just made him feel like he could do it. Like he could actually be the hero he wanted to be. Knuckledister seemed to notice that as well. Just remember, you are both human too, in the end. Don't go forgetting that. He just was not determined enough to do the job without it. I see, Stendhal replied, transfixed on the night sky above him and letting Knuckledister's words sink in, much like the blood from his mashed-in nose draining into his mouth, making him violently cough a few times. I understand now. Stendhal shot up to rush Knuckledister, but Naruto got in the way as he blocked the mad slasher's long knives with his own arm, which had turned metal. Those even more sinful than villains. Those who lack determination yet still applaud themselves false heroes. Stendhal gasped out beyond the blood with a manic grin, and his eyes looked like they were losing touch with reality, and he was really letting loose his bloodlust for all to feel. So. Naruto used his electric gentle fist to zap one of his arms numb. Naruto was going to go for the other, but the crazy man quickly jumped his way to the rooftops. Naruto really hoped that Pop wasn't up there. Yes, so clear now. My mask, like my ignorance, has been stripped away by fire and concussive forces. I am so very grateful for this lesson by both my elder and my junior. I just needed a fresh perspective. With that, the lunatic bounded away into the night. Well shit. I feel that will bite us in the ass later. Naruto deadpanned as Pop Step leaped down to them, looking a little rattled from the scene she watched the tail end of. I would not worry too much away about it. Lunatics like him do not get far. Knuckledister replied with a frown. Koichi? Naruto. Are you hurt? Pop Step asked as she recovered and started checking them over. I am good. I am a fast healer. Naruto admit, but he wasn't hurt all that much to begin with. His arm turned metal for him. Naruto wonder how the pre-top path knew how to do that on its own or how he did that without thinking. Knuckledister noticed that in his taser fingers but didn't say anything for now. Still didn't stop Pop Step from fussing over him like a big sister before working on Koichi. His pained screams as the disinfectant touched his leg wound were ignored as Pop just wrapped it up. Now that the baby is patched up, help the other guy. Knuckledister ordered. Pop Step saw he was talking about Soga, the guy when they first met, tried to beat Koichi's face and rape her to teach them a lesson. Thankfully that never happened because Knuckledister beat his face in, but if he was willing to give him a chance, fine, whatever. It didn't stop her from glaring at him, something he threw back at her. You gonna be okay, Soga? Koichi asked, throwing them off guard. Sure are some scary people in the big bad world, huh? I am just glad we both came out alive. Soga honestly didn't know how to react to someone being nice and worrying about him, so he defaulted to his usual response of ignoring people with a growl. But his face softened up soon after. Naruto saw this and nudged Koichi, look at you, being a decent person and gaining potential allies from an act of kindness. Good on you, man. Soga just ignored them in favor of the girl treating his chest wound. Hey, what is with Cruller anyway? We were about to meet our makers and now he's grinning like it was nothing. Something is screwy as that head of his for sure. Same goes for the Red Cloud Kid and Grandpa Fist. Those two are overly violent, but they helped in the end. Pop Step admitted, but then a blush formed as she thought about Koichi. He's not that scrawny, he is just an idiot. Soga noticed this and sighed. Oh, I see how it is. Naruto was dying of laughter one weekend when he went over to Naruhata because Koichi had gotten roped into something stupid. From an outside perspective, the guy everyone in college labeled as the creeper of the Naruhata ruins was suddenly tired all the time and was a bit suspicious. It was no wonder someone would at least investigate. Iwa looked amused and offered to help his way, but Koichi denied, saying he did not want to hurt the girl who gave him some attention and some help in his hero sociology class. Kazuho, on the other hand, did make it known that she was jealous of the older girl butting in on their business. Not that Koichi picked on it, adding to Naruto's own amusement. Naruto could tell Kazuho had a thing for the college kid, why he may never figure it out, but Naruto noticed it and Koichi did not. It made Naruto think back to his time in Konoha and how Hinata crushed on him until she confessed during the pain attack. After that, he did not have much time to talk to her as the fourth ninja war started soon after and he had to go into hiding to train. Admittedly, he had been highly distracted by his feelings for Sakura and his need to train. He felt bad that he could never answer Hinata. He hoped it did not end the same way for Koichi. Still, Naruto noticed that Iwa was thinking of things to do to distract the people in their lives from finding out that they were vigilantes. It was only a matter of time before their families got involved by sticking their noses in their business. Don't worry, while Knuckles takes care of things on his side, Pop and I will watch out for you on your date. Naruto teased, causing Kazuho to start grumbling. While Koichi checked on her, Iwa called the blonde over. Kid, I am starting to narrow down the search for her. When you are done with watching out for Koichi, I need you to get in contact with that hedgehog guy. It would be better to have multiple people out on the search. Plus, it seems like he needs someone to believe in him, so why not us? Naruto shrugged. Sure, why not? The rough crowd does get a bad rap, even back home. I'll see what I can do. But do you have a picture of her? Yeah, I will give it to you once you've rounded him up. I do not have it on me, not right now. Iwa replied gruffly. Well that is interesting. I did not realize this Mikoto lady was going to be older than Koichi. She looks like some sort of businesswoman. Naruto commented as he and Pop Step followed their friend along the rooftops. He heard Kazuho grumbling under her breath that Mikoto was quite beautiful, but questioned Koichi's taste. Having heard enough from the girl, the childlike Naruto took hold of her hand and brought his hood down. Hey, if you want him, you have to say something eventually. You are like a sister to me, I don't want to see you unhappy. I don't know your situation but speaking from experience, tell him before it is too late, okay? Kazuho blinked rapidly at the little blonde boy, shocked that he had a certain amount of wisdom behind his eyes and usual snarky behavior. She was also glad he saw her as family basically when their group was as dysfunctional as it was. I will try. It is difficult just saying the words and what he did for me years back. Then I will help as best I can. For now, let's make sure Koichi does not make a total fool out of himself. Naruto snarked with a smirk, causing Kazuho to flash a matching one back at him. Then Pop blinked as a thought occurred to her. Naruto did something happen to cause that line of thought. The lone tear was her answer as the blonde remembered Hinata and the rest of Konoha. Yeah, I'll tell you later sometime. We could help each other through some stuff. Pop smiled at the younger boy and gave him a quick hug before going back to the mission at hand. So based on info from social media and other sites, I've got a few leads on where our targets are likely to show up. That is where our research will begin. Makoto stated once pleasantries were said after meeting up. Ah, that makes sense, Koichi replied, thinking that was exactly what Pop Step showed him and Naruto when they were looking for better solutions than just following Knuckledister around as he picked a fight with everyone he saw, including an off-duty pro hero in Eraserhead. Still, he decided to play along for now since he was one of the vigilantes she was looking for, much to their entertainment. But do they even make appearances that often? Running into the vigilantes themselves would be best, Makoto admitted, but what I really want to know is how they're perceived by people in the area. Perceived? Koichi asked basically for everyone in their group. Akatsuki and Pop Step actually looked thoughtful at this. Pop knew she was a popular street idol, but she was curious about how far that went. Remember from our talk last time? Makoto reminded her partner about this outing. Neither one would call this a date, even if Koichi had that thought cross his mind. When the pro-hero system was created, what was the factor that separated heroes from villains? Right. And you said I'd get that answer eventually. Koichi replied happily. That time seemed now. It sure is, Makoto confirmed. In all likelihood, it had nothing to do with the law, morals, ethics, or anything like that. It was public support. Or put simply, popularity. Wait, that's how they decided it? Koichi replied in a bit of shock. Oh, I guess that makes sense. Pop Step commented. Seeing as she was an idol, that mentality was already there. Oh my god, seriously? Akatsuki deadpanned. This whole hero system is a popularity contest. There are other defining factors like the number of cases solved and a few other minor things, but yeah. Hit the nail on that one. Pop Step supplied, giggling a bit when Naruto banged his head on a nearby wall in frustration. Izuku might have already figured that out, but that was still annoying. The shinobi system was different, but maybe that is what it needed. But then again, this hero society was flawed too. Maybe a mix of the two. He was still trying to figure that out. Yep. With powers as varied as Quirk's, the law could only manage them in a generalized way. Makoto continued. So the right to use such powers had to depend on trust in the individual. The popularity contest side of things has a serious influence on modern-day hero rankings, right? That was even more true back in the day when the law was struggling to keep up with the changing times. So now I am taking a look at these Naruto vigilantes who are basically primitive heroes. Specifically, what do the people in the area think about them? I have a feeling the answer will tell us something about the foundations of the current hero system and the superpowered society as a whole. They're seriously taking a whole class about this? Naruto grumbled, maybe I should read up on it myself. Why is that, Naruto? Kazuho asked with genuine curiosity. Your job for one thing, Naruto admitted. But humans having all these amazing powers and being forced not to use them is like waiting for something bad to happen. In a way, it is almost like the situation with Trigger and the instant villains. Humans naturally want to show off what makes them special, and if you suppress them for too long, we will have villains in the streets that are not actually villains. Just humans acting like they usually do. That is why we should be able to use them in our future jobs. Wow, I never thought of it that way, Kazuho replied in a bit of amazement that a 9-year-old kid was thinking this way. He was rather mature for a boy of his age. But these instant villains caused by Trigger are still a problem. Oh, no doubt, Naruto admitted. But I have a friend who was a late bloomer, and then there are people like Knuckledister who are quirkless. Soon, that will not exist, and then the problem would be everyone's if something isn't done. That is why I want to be the top hero one day to make the needed changes. Yeah, that makes a bit of sense, Kazuho admitted. It sounds like what the teachers at my school fear happening in the future, the Quirk singularity theory. And I believe you will be a great hero one day, Naruto, you can do it. Thanks. Naruto replied as the two smiled at each other. Alright, be my cameraman, okay? Makoto asked Koichi after it seemed he was on board with wanting to know what people thought about the Naruto vigilantes. Call him vain, but he was genuinely curious about what people thought about him. Time to start interviewing people on the street then. Funnily enough, some of the first people the two ran into were their favorite Cyclops and Wolverine knockoffs in Ichimoku and Jube, the street smart fans of Pop Step. Vigilantes? Oh, those unlicensed hero types. Ichimoku asked in good humor mostly because one of them was right in front of them and Makoto seemingly had no idea. Jube smirked and asked, we're talking about the Crawler, Red Cloud Kid, and their pals, yeah. They both wanted to out Koichi because it was too easy and the man himself was silently pleading with that, but they decided to skip him entirely. They just could not keep a straight face. Believe it or not, Pop Step started out as an idol on the internet, but lately she's been patrolling the neighborhood with them, Ichimoku informed them with a lovey-dovey grin, because hey, he was her fan and he liked her. I just hope doesn't get hurt out there. Though as a fan, it is pretty great seeing her on the streets. The Cruller is kind of a wimp with all his dodging, so it is up to Red Cloud Kid and Grandpa Fist to make sure she is okay though. Grandpa Fist though is freaking scary. Yub nodded sagely, of the same mindset, we even got her autograph. She's a cool gal. We're cheering her on. And so it went on, with various types of people having their own opinions on them. Schoolgirls were sure that the Cruller, no one ever got their names right, was looking up their skirts since he was so low to the ground and he was just creepy to them. Old ladies loved Cruller and the Red Cloud Kid because they helped them with all sorts of things. And older men just didn't care about the male vigilantes anyway. Those guys all thought Pop Step was great and had a great ass. Kids, however, looked up to Akatsuki because it showed he cared about them and their neighborhood and he looked cool while doing it. By chance, they ran into the disguised form of Knuckledister's daughter and Naruto managed to take a better photo of her from his position on the rooftops. This way when he got with Soga, they would have a more recent photo along with what her father gave him. Pop Step was just surprised that the woman didn't cause a scene like time. Suspicious. After the interviews were done, Makoto gathered the information while Ichimoku and Jube stayed around to see how it went and got a great laugh for their troubles. With all the data put together, we have all this ouch. A lot of people are calling that one guy creepy. Yep, there were 4 pie charts that show all the info, and Koichi was both annoyed and disheartened. Most of his were creepy but helpful. Koichi also seemed annoyed with Pop Step's results in that they were all about her ass, and they most loved her for directing people away from the violence. He wasn't surprised to see that people just didn't like his master. They thought the old man to be scary and bad news. As for Akatsuki, he saw that people thought he was a cute kid, but he could be scary at times. He was helpful, but most thought he was way too young to be doing what he was doing. Huh. Before anything else could be said or done, Makoto's laptop was stolen by a guy that was part penguin that was playing soccer as a distraction. Most people really thought he should be a soccer player over some common thief, but that was neither here nor there. Ichimoku and Jube sped off after that guy, and Koichi was about to go and get geared up to be able to help get it back, something that Makoto's sharp eyes noticed, but he was cut off by a pebble smacking his head. They both looked up to see a waving Naruto, signifying that he would get it. Naruto geared into action, leaping off rooftops like he had done it all his life. The people had no idea that he had but were all still shocked nonetheless. He was glad for the middle schoolers' help in this endeavor because they distracted the penguin guy long enough for Naruto to make his move. As to what that was, well, he decided to pull off a Jiraiya just for shits and giggles. Naruto summoned a giant toad that landed on the guy, causing the laptop to go flying in the air, while the giant red and black toad seemed to stun everyone that watched. Naruto easily caught the laptop and landed on the toad in a very Jiraiya-esque stance and began to dance like the man did whenever he wanted to make a grand entrance. Sue Naruto, but he was feeling nostalgic today. The title Red Cloud Boy is merely bait to draw you in. I shall tell you my true identity. That got everyone's attention, even Makoto who looked excited to learn who the youngest member of the Naruto vigilantes was. Some even brought out their phones to record him. That was definitely not going to bite him in the ass later. No sir. I am the red dawn of change rising within Naruto. I will one day be a great hero to make that change a reality. You may call me Akatsuki, the brilliant animal tamer. Ooh, if you are so great, tell your toad to get off. The penguin man cried out before the toad smacked him upside the head, knocking him out. Makoto could not help the giggles that escaped her as she said, nice job kid, but I thought you going to reveal who you were under the mask. Naruto happily gave her the laptop while smiling. Oh, you wanted to see what was under the mask. Yes. The entire street screamed out, making him sweat drop a bit, but a shit-eating grin formed on his lips. What's under the mask? Naruto replied as he pinched his mask as if to take it down, causing everyone to lean in with anticipation, Makoto most of all as Koichi and Pop Step started to sweat. Is another mask. The result was the entire street falling on their ass in exasperation, but there were people like Ichimoku, Jube, Koichi, and Pop Step who nearly died laughing. That put Naruto in a good mood as he thought about not only Jiraiya, but Kakashi too. It was fun to mess with the crowd as they had with him. After a moment, Makoto chuckled as well as the street dispersed. Okay kid, you are alright. Thank you getting my laptop back. Anytime miss. Naruto announced as he tied up the penguin-themed thief for the cops to pick up before he jumped back to the rooftops to a still giggling Pop Step. Seeing her do so, Naruto could not help but join her as the laughter renewed. Even he had to admit that what he did was ridiculous. Makoto just shook her head, highly amused by the kid's antics. She could not question who he was with her polygraph quirk since she did not have a clue as to his real identity. However, she now had an idea about Koichi, given his reactions to people's words on the Cruller man. That and he did not have the build for that Grandpa Fist character. Putting a hand on his shoulder, she leaned in with asking with a smirk, given that you were so geared up to help get my laptop back, just answer me this. You are the cruller man, aren't you? No, I'm not. Koichi replied in a deadpan tone and slightly hurt that even she called him cruller. It was crawler, damn it. Makoto blinked at that, her quirk telling her that what he said was true. He wasn't the cruller. Oh. I am sorry, I just assumed with you were so pepped up. Thank you for trying though. Tell you what, let's go get something to eat for our hard work today. That instantly put Koichi in a better mood. Besides, it was technically true that Koichi genuinely believed he was not the cruller, some dude named after a pastry. He was the crawler, which he always announced, but people ignored. It saved his butt though. Even that was still amusing to Naruto and Kazuho. A little while later, Naruto and Iwao in their street clothes found themselves in front of Soga. He seemed put off at first, but Soga gained a bit of confidence, and his cocky attitude showed through. What you want, old man? You and your brat lost, old man. No, but I can tell that you are. Iwao commented gruffly. That seemed to be the wrong thing to say, and it riled up Soga if the agitated look on his face was anything to go by. What was that? He asked, hoping they did not change their words so he could let off some steam. He is giving you a chance. We could help find his daughter. Naruto commented. That blew the wind right out of his sails as Soga looked at them dumbly. Wah. Besides, you already know us, so you can't argue that point. Iwao replied with a smirk as he put on his mask, much to the fright of the boy in front of them. Holy shit. Knuckleduster. Soga yelled, backing up into a wall. Craning his neck down, Soga looked at Naruto and asked, Akatsuki. Wait, why isn't that flaky one here? Because this is a job, I want you and Naruto's help. My daughter has been possessed by a bee user. I need you boys' help because it would be weird for a guy my age to go asking around for a young girl. Iwao explained. I get it, but due to my looks, I am not well liked, if you haven't caught on. Soga replied somewhat glumly. So? I am giving you a chance and besides, I know you have a good head on your shoulders, you are just misguided. Iwao explained. So, what do you say? Soga actually thought about it. How everyone gave him fake smiles growing up only to tell him to off later on. His friends, who were in the hospital thanks to one of those instant villains, stayed with him. Mostly because they were all in the same boat. One was a literal lizard man, while the other was perpetually on fire. This old man and the kid were actually asking for his help, giving him a chance. Fine. He replied quietly before looking at Naruto. But I do want to fight you. I saw what little you did against Stendhal, and all you seem to do is summon animals. I want to know if you can fight. Naruto's grin became feral. Well, there is an underground street fight scheduled for later. The blonde said, getting Iwao's attention enough to groan and roll his eyes. He had a feeling he knew who set that up. He was going to have to supervise that. We can be the opening act. Ripper? That you? Tiger Bunny asked with a massive grin as she walked up to him, Naruto, and Soga. Why, I am not surprised you have another metal nickname. Soga groaned out. Ah, so the little battle-hungry bunny has become the queen of the ring, why am I not surprised? Let me guess. You're Naruto's other teacher that Kaina mentioned. Hell yeah. He is helping me clean up the roster. Trigger is making its way in. Rumi replied with a frown. So, it had infected your arena too. I have a hunch where it is coming from, we just need to take out the local suppliers. Iwao replied thoughtfully. Oh? You have an idea? Want help? Not unless you plan to come to China with me when this is over. Iwao deadpanned, but Rumi did look thoughtful. I will think about it. Undercover work has never been my strong suit. Rumi replied. The boys looked her up and down in a deadpan stare. She merely wore her old high school uniform and her infamous tiger mask. Not to mention her large bunny ears. Her sucking at stealth was never in question. Oh, I will say that the guy you fought last time, the one that set off the EMP, has gone completely missing. That brought the hairs on the back of Naruto's neck stand on end. That could only mean one thing, and the knowing looks Iwao and Rumi sent each other was telling. This time, the underground fighting arena took place in a large abandoned office building in Naruhata, and like usual it was crowded. Although, everyone's attention was focused on the youngest member of their fight club, Akatsuki. Due to a recent video of him taking down the penguin-themed thief, there was plenty of ragging at his expense. Look out all, the great Akatsuki is our opening fight. A man in the crowd jeered. Usually, the most eccentric are the strongest people I know. So I am weird, big whoop. Naruto said aloud, making the crowd murmur, with most confirming that fact. They had seen plenty of heroes that weren't quite right in the head. It was a little unsettling. Enough yammering. Tiger Bunny shouted to the crowd. This first fight is a challenge issued outside our wall, and I don't mind honoring it. Young Akatsuki, enter the ring with your challenger. Soga followed Naruto, and he felt like he was having an out-of-body experience. He was a street tough because all throughout his life, people treated him differently because his quirk made him look scary to other people. It made him look foreign and almost like those mutation types the small towns hated for one reason or another. People just stayed away from him and he was lonely a lot. That was why he cherished the few friends he had. Then came the old man and the kid, asking for his help. His help. A small part of him wanted to accept right away, but his irrational anger led him here. Now he was in an underground fighting arena. He was not a total stranger to them, living on the streets made you aware of certain things after all. He just never figured he would take part in them. To find out the kid took part in them regularly, that was a bit jarring. "You ready, Soga?" Naruto asked as he took a stance. "Yeah, let's do this, brat." Soga growled out as he let his quirk function, producing spikes of his fists that got the crowd going in excitement. But the fight was over before he knew it. Soga was known for picking on the weak and did not have much of a fighting style. He was a scrapper and he sometimes used his head, but that was it. To take 2 hits from Naruto was like putting his fingers in an electrical outlet. One where it blew you across the room. And Soga found himself sitting next to a chatty guy with white hair around his own age. Someone called Tadawaki. He really had no choice but to listen to the guy talk because both his arms were numb and his legs didn't seem to work either. Whatever those electrified pokes were from the kid, it really messed him up. Iwao also sat next to him, grinning like the madman everyone thought him to be. "I wouldn't worry too much about your loss, friend. That kid seems to be in a league of his own. I can't wait to test my own mettle against him," Tadawaki commented. "Has the kid been holding his own here that much?" Iwao asked with a sharp grin. Naruto wasn't with him because he was in another room, preparing for his next match. That didn't mean they couldn't enjoy the other fights. Hell yeah. Everyone thought I was too young to be here, so they immediately called him out as well. Akatsuki's last match was against a muscular kid with an M quirk. After using it, the kid proved that he didn't need the electric finger style he used to kick ass. He changed styles and laid that guy out. After watching some of his fights with the other Naruto vigilantes, it makes sense. "He is that good, huh?" Soga asked after a moment with a rueful smile. It seemed that he could count on the kid after all. He now thought he needed to prove himself to the kid. "Yup. Still can't figure out his quirk though," the white-haired boy replied before shrugging it off a bit. But it made Iwao focus on him more. "Mind seems to mess with people's perceptions in battle, his gives his fingers the ability to turn into tasers, and then I saw the animal summoning. Weird, but whatever. Must be related around animals, most people like that have multiple abilities of the animal they are aligned with." Soga's sweat dropped at that. His trigger form was a giant hedgehog, but his human form was limited by his quirk core, so he thought anyway. Did he have other abilities? Probably not. "Alright, you band of adrenaline junkies." Tiger Bunny shouted to get everyone's attention back on her. "The final fight of the night is with the brat who started it, Akatsuki." Now that Naruto had shown a bit more skill, about half the room was rooting for the kid. "Vs the crazy monk you all love, but since his monastery burned to the ground, he needs something to punch. Zashoku." Naruto walked into the arena just as the other announced person. Sadly the guy looked like a homeless monk, but it didn't seem to bother him and his gangly form and bald head. The man had wide and crazed eye that worried Naruto, but he wasn't sure how to help the guy. "Are you ready, kid? I am going to rip off all 4 limbs at once." The man laughed as the bell rang. "That's a thought," Naruto commented with a raised eyebrow. "How are you going to do that with only 2 arms?" The man's grin became sinister as he seemed to grow 2 more arms and even a 5th arm right from his spine. Then another head popped up next to his own that just made jabbering noises to distract the blonde shinobi. "Oh, did the guy that Kiba fought that one time escape here?" Naruto asked himself aloud, making those that heard him give him a strange look. Again, no one would know what he was even going on about, but that did not matter at the point, as Naruto had to dodge a hail of fists sent his way. The blonde felt himself charged up as this strange monk, because every once and while when he dodged a strike, a new limb would appear to try and strike him down, and then disappear again. This fight in a young body was exhilarating. The battle was rough for the young blonde as he got hit multiple times. He thought himself surprised by his battle style. Changing between unknown fighting styles was different, yes, but so was the monk who could create limbs all around his body. However, he did notice the man was tiring and he could only create a few limbs at a time. The more he would create, the more that others would disappear. The monk was limited to a set number. "Gotta say, kid, this is the most fun I have had in a while. Most of the monks back home couldn't challenge me like you could with those strange styles. I'll give you some advice. Quit now, you are too slow to beat me." Slow was he? It always pissed the blonde off when he was underestimated back home, and that didn't change now. He may be younger now, but he could still fight pretty well. Probably way better than when he had been on a team with Sakura and Sasuke. Kakashi never taught him a better fighting style, always with the teamwork exercises. Wait, speaking of teamwork, he remembered watching how Team Idaten would cover each other and the main hero. Thinking about how to use what Koichi described of man and what he knew of him, Naruto gained an idea of his own, and he hoped the pre-top path would cooperate with him. Thanks, but there are ways to be faster than I am now. How about this, one final strike between each other? Naruto stated as he noticed that his sleeves had been ripped off. Perfect. Oh? Trying to bait me, kid? Fine, I am curious about what you can do. In truth, Naruto hadn't learned everything the scrolls could offer. It was still too early for that, and there were a few things he didn't have the ability to do. But this crazy, half-baked idea might just work. With the crowd roaring in delight, the two sped at each other. Toshoku rushed forward with both normal fists ready to strike him down and then pummel him some more with his propagated fists and maybe even another kick. Naruto jumped at the monk with only one well-aimed kick. That is until exhaust pipes like Tensei had in his own elbowed formed from the pre-top path and made him spin around rapidly to give a punishing and surprising drill kick to the surprised monk. And what came out of the pipes was a torrent of water that sprayed the crowd, who all they saw was a rapidly spinning whirlpool in midair. Uzumaki torpedo. The kick connected and launched the monk so quickly into a nearby wall, it stunned the crowd before they all ran in and cheered the boy on in a celebratory crowd surf. Rumi had an excited smile of her own. That was certainly a move she would love to fight against. This agreement with Kaina was certainly paying off. Iwa's own grin was savage. If the kid could use fire, then his plan was in the bag. As he listened to Soga and Tadaaki cheer the kid on, his grin softened into a proud one. He and Rumi were doing well. Koichi would gain his maneuverability training and knowledge, while Naruto got the fighting knowledge. He was fine with that and proud of his boys. But next Naruto found himself back at Koichi's pace. He found out that Koichi had been interrupted in a cat and mouse chase of some motorcycle villain by an actual hero. However, what the blonde did not expect was for this hero to be someone from across the seas and a guy named Captain Celebrity. The man was arrogant and self-absorbed to the point that he just signed Koichi's All Might hoodie that he used for heroing. We get it, if you wanted that hoodie signed, it would have to be from All Might himself, Naruto commented as he ate a TV dinner with Kazuho and Iwao. More information about Captain Celebrity was put on TV for them to watch. It kind of annoyed Naruto that the captain's real name was public, but it made sense. Big-time heroes often did that, and he actually was surprised that All Might did not. No wait, the man had explained that All for One would use that against him. But to be honest, Naruto felt that if the man wanted to, All for One would. All Might had put himself in a corner and stayed there, afraid to move. Well, that was until his mom got in the man's face about it. They weren't officially dating, but the world saw it that way, even Naruto. It made Naruto happy that they were happy. HMPH, this idiot. They call him Captain Catastrophe Celebrity. Iwao stated, helping the three understand more of what was really going on. It is just one lawsuit or scandal after another with him. Basically, he could not work in the States anymore, so now he come here to make a living. Gives me bad vibes. Koichi growled out. It kind of shocked Kazuho that Koichi was that against the American hero, but then again, he did ruin his All Might hoodie. As Naruto got wrapped up in some of his own training with both Rumi and his classmates, he did miss a bit of vigilante hero work with Crawler and Pop Step. However, that was fine because Captain Celebrity was hogging the limelight a bit. Plus, it just gave Koichi an excuse to push himself to be better. The main thing he missed was Koichi learning that Makoto now worked for the captain, who honestly was trying to get in her pants. Naruto believed that Koichi had nothing to worry about for his fellow college student because after they went out the captain was blatantly afraid of her. That was funny to Naruto, but it also made it hard for Naruto to help Kazuho because the idiot was now crushing on Makoto. It was the Sakura BS all over again. Still, it was funny seeing Makoto start being the captain's manager by basically overworking the American hero. Then the weekend came when Naruto could hang out with Koichi and the gang again, but it seemed like the kid was a bit frazzled. It turned out that the college kid's very strict mother was coming to town and that had him scared stiff. It made the blonde feel for the boy, but seeing this would give him a bit of insight into how Koichi was. This also seemed to interest Iwao too because while he was a hard ass, he did not instill the same fear Koichi had for his mom. And if Koichi failed to impress her, then he would have to move back to the countryside. None of them wanted that. Naruto stealthily waited for Koichi's mom on his roof. Was it weird? Probably, but he was here to help a friend. When he saw her, she indeed looked like a strict businesswoman. Was she? He had no idea. Plus, Koichi mentioned a girlfriend so the woman could meet her, and before he could get Kazuho in the mindset, Koichi had already called Makoto. That figured. Here I am, Koichi. The woman loudly said as she barged through the front door. Mom. It's been a while. Koichi muttered as his mother inspected the place, making sure nothing was wrong and to her liking. From his observation point, Naruto idly wondered if Kaina was going to be like that in the future. He really hoped not. In a way, she was just like Kushina, supportive. As she sat down for a cup of tea, Koichi's mother sighed and smiled. Well, look at this. You have actually made a life for yourself. Her grin became dangerous though as she said, now let's see this girlfriend of yours. Makoto. You're up. Naruto whispered aloud to the woman on the other side of the building. Thank you. Makoto rang out cheerfully as she went up to the door and knocked. When Koichi called, she hadn't expected for him to be nearly hyperventilating and needing her help for such a simple act. But she had helped out other friends with similar issues. This was easy. Hello. I am Makoto Tsukauchi. Pleased to meet you, ma'am. Koichi and I are seeing each other. Sorry about this weird favor, Koichi whispered as he took her coat. Haha. This is gonna cost you. Makoto whispered back cheerfully. After all, she already put up with her lecherous boss perving on her, a friend asking for this type of favor was not as weird as it sounded. Still, if she could get his help on a few other things, then it was worth it. Sitting down at Koichi's table, she faced his mother. I am a few years ahead of Koichi at our school. My, oh my. What a charming young lady. Koichi's mom replied cheerfully but dropped the act soon after to use her quirk, fly swatter, to smack her son from across the room. She did not believe for one second that her son could court a girl like that. She raised him how she wanted him to be, so she knew him too well. Koichi, enough of this ridiculous act. Why would someone as put together as her ever go out with someone like you? That is harsh, Naruto grumbled as he watched his friend get smacked around by his mother. Why she was like that, he would never know. Turning towards his phone, he said, alright boss man, now it is our turn. Wow, she really didn't take the bait. On it kid. Iwa replied in a bit of surprise. Yep oh, Kazuho, you decided to come after all. I like the outfit. Naruto replied as he jumped next to her. Thanks, let's get this over with. Kazuho muttered. To many, she might just look casual, but her floral print dress was supposed to impress, along with the jacket and beanie. It showed that she was one of Koichi's friends. Now I can't trust a word you say about school or anything else. I guess I have to drag you back home. Just as I feared. The college kid's mom replied angrily. I am keeping an eye on Koichi at school, Makoto reassured for his friend's mental state. She was a go-getter, but even she thought this was too harsh of an act. So you needn't worry about his studies, ma'am. Besides, there may come a day when we really do date each other. Who knows? Don't get my hopes up. I can't say I am fond of empty promises. The woman muttered with a bored but still angry look. Still, she liked Makoto because she looked out for her son, so she smiled. But you have quite a way with words. You would really be my daughter-in-law. I am Shoko Himawari, by the way. Boy, this woman was laying it on thick. I'd consider it. Oh, Koichi, you have company already. Hope you do not mind more. Naruto replied as he jumped in through the window, scaring the mother half to death before he opened to the door for a nervous Kazuho. Hello Kazuho stuttered out. Have you no manners, young man? Shoko yelled after recovering. At least the girl has the decency to use the door. That's the boring way. Naruto cheekily replied, much to Makoto's amusement. Koichi had some interesting friends. She was also beginning to understand who these people were. Especially when they whispered so much to each other. Besides, I will gladly take the heat off my friend. The heat? I am just disciplining my son. Something your own mother should be doing. The mother roared out. True, my mother has her work cut out for her, Naruto admitted. Kaina was a new mother after all, and now she had 2 kids to look after. From a certain point of view, 3 if you counted All Might, but they were dating now. Good thing she had help in the form of friends. Naruto got along with her tougher friends in Iwao and Rumi, while Himiko got along with Inko and a rekindled friend in Namuri. Speaking of Midnight, those 2 got along too well, to be honest. But you raised Koichi, so you should know what he is like and trust him to be able to adapt and change. I mean, Tokyo is a huge place, he has survived this long. Koichi's mom froze for a moment before smiling at the young boy. I suppose you have a point. Who are you two, by the way? Call me Naruto Uzumaki. Or Tsutsumi if you want to get technical. Mom did adopt me. Naruto replied, making Koichi's mom and Makoto stare at him for a second. Makoto knew that her brother was hanging around All Might as of late, he could not get that past her. Plus, she knew that All Might was dating Lady Nagant or something close to dating. She also knew how to look up who Nagant really was. So, this was a surprise to her. What was the kid doing all the way out here? As for Koichi's mom, she understood a bit now. Koichi had a good but tough friend looking out for him even, though she thought it sad that a grade school kid was looking out for her son. It should be the other way around. My name is Kazuho Hanayama. The pink-haired girl replied with a pleasant smile. Koichi's mom thought it weird though that a few kids younger than her son was hanging out with him. How are you acquainted with my son? Oh, that is easy. Naruto interrupted with a smile. We met in a local program set up through a friend of my mother's. The kid's right, though I didn't realize Koichi would be having more guests than just us, Iwa stated as he too walked in, making the two women stare at him in awe for a moment. They both thought the man was a hunk with all his muscles. It meant they did not notice that Koichi slightly freaking out since to him, Knuckledister was hard to explain. Thankfully, Naruto had his back. You're sure looking spiffy today, master. Koichi pointed out having not seen this look from the man before. Because I came straight over from work. Iwa stated. Oh. Well, this is my mom and a friend from my school. You already know Naruto and Kazuho. Koichi replied, introducing them. Pleased to meet both of you, Iwa replied as he reached into his suit's coat and pulled out a couple of business cards for the women to take. My name is Takeshi Kuroiwa. An obvious lie to those that knew him, but it was a good alias. Oh. I love networking. I never miss a chance if I could help it. Makoto replied excitedly as both women took the cards presented to them. An NPO? What sort of projects do you work on? We provide support in neighborhoods like East Narahata, where local government and community organizations are less effective. In fact, volunteer workers like Naruto, Kazuho, and Koichi here are key to the mission. They keep roads clean and patrol for crime at night. Iwa explained. In a way, he was telling the truth about what they did as vigilantes. Brilliant cover. My son has always been drawn to that sort of thing. Koichi's mother replied, but she did not knock it this time. Thanks to these people praising her kid, she was starting to at least see that he was not completely useless. Yup, his commitment has been a big help, actually, Iwa replied with a grin. And in the tougher neighborhoods, they watch each other's backs. And I often use your son's apartment for our meetings. We have even been working on defense training for those situations out on the roof. These kids are pretty decent. Ah, that's why he called you master. Makoto deduced. However, she wasn't an idiot, she had felt up the man's muscles, and she had quickly deduced that this man was Knuckledister and the kids were the rest of the Narahata vigilantes. Great cover. Did you used to have a different job of some sort? Military? Police? Or perhaps you were a hero? The scar on his face was pretty obvious. A hero, Makoto? For goodness' sake. Shoko huffed out. Her obvious dislike for hero work showing through. No, that wasn't quite right. Naruto sensed that she didn't want her son dealing with that line of work because she feared for his safety. Odd way to show that you cared. Stick with ordinary people. You know how it goes with heroes. They let themselves get used until their own lives fall apart. My Koichi used to have heroic aspirations, in fact. He thought appearances would make the man. Went around imitating All Might, of all people. He would interfere in fights, get hurt, and put himself in danger trying to help others. That is really just being called a decent person, Naruto replied with a bored expression to hide the fact that he was actually angry with the woman. Things won't get better if nobody does anything about situations like that. Did you make him stop? I didn't have to. Koichi's mother admitted, showing that she thought about doing the deed herself. It didn't sit right with the group. He was off to be a hero when we went to go take a hero high school exam, but he came slinking back home after falling in a river. Naruto noticed that while she seemed relieved, she also felt disappointed. He also noticed Kazuho's negative emotions rise in response to the woman bad-mouthing her son. But they were sharper now that she was talking about the river incident that Koichi mentioned one time. Curious. My boy is always the unreliable sort, drawn towards trouble. That's just not true. Makoto sent a bright smile towards the younger girl, having figured out the same as Naruto, and was glad someone defended Koichi. She saw that Naruto's brash words were getting to the woman, but it was slow going. Kazuho though did seem the most offended by the mother's words. Do you have something to so say, Kazuho? Why not tell us, then? Makoto asked enthusiastically. Although, after she said it, she felt bad because it might be just something she was holding back and what to tell Koichi himself. Then never mind. Kazuho replied nervously, a bit embarrassed that she would have to be forced to say anything. Speak your mind, young lady. Shoko yelled, causing her to run away. This caused Shoko to blink rapidly and feel bad. She was used to speaking her mind, if a bit jumbled. It seemed that Kazuho wasn't. Oh, now I have done it. Dear me, I should not have pressed the girl so hard. No, you shouldn't have. Naruto sighed as he got up, noticing that Koichi was highly uncomfortable about someone receiving the same treatment he was used to from the woman. Being shouted at into submission. I will go and see if she is okay. Thanks, buddy. Koichi replied. No problem. Naruto replied and gave him a cheeky grin that Koichi sweat at. That grin usually meant that the kid was going to be a smartass. Besides, you would probably just piss her off. Ha ha. Koichi got out just as sarcastically, something his mother noticed and managed to hide her smile at. Kazuho, wait. Naruto said after he caught up to her. Oh hey, Naruto, Kazuho replied nervously. I thought that woman would have sent Koichi instead. I beat her to the punch. I am used to people yelling mostly at me before I got adopted. Doesn't bother me that much. Naruto stated with a shrug. Kazuho frowned though it learned another piece of Naruto's past. It did not seem all that great. At least he had a family now. That woman is like a tiger, but she is so dismissive of her own son. It bothered me. We all fight but we are just goofing off. She was being malicious. Sometimes people do that to protect those they love from the world. That is sort of what I was picking up from her. Naruto said, but he and even Kurama were getting a headache just trying to understand the woman. But I get why you were so defensive. Because I like him. You already know that. Well, it helps, but the incident they were talking about. The one he saved was you, wasn't it? Naruto asked, making the girl freeze and have a deer in the headlights look. I thought so and now I am even more determined to help you get him. To me, it seemed more than some infatuation since he saved you. You have gotten to know the guy, which is why you like him. Kazuho stared at Naruto for a moment in shock before a watery smile formed on her face, and she hugged him. Thank you. Anytime, Naruto replied. At least I can help someone in a similar situation. That got Kazuho's eyes to snap open and look at the kid in wonder and a bit of concern. He was mature for his age, but that statement many of his statements insinuated a level of experience and understanding. What happened? The next day while Koichi, his mother and Makoto were out on the town as it were, Naruto and Iwa were out patrolling. They thought to do a bit of daytime patrolling to keep the city extra safe for the three shopping, but Iwa was looking to get in a fight. He was bored. It was weird seeing Koichi basically being mad-dogged by his mom. Naruto said during their patrol across the rooftops of a mall. Indeed. There are some parents that do not want to see their kids hurt, so they don't believe in them at all. I have seen it before. I doubt this will be the last time I will see it. Makes me wonder what caused Shoko's issue. Iwa replied sagely. It went silent again after that. Naruto did not have much experience in that department. His birth mother died that night he was born and only met her later down the line. Kaina was a great mom, so he did not have to worry about her not believing in him. That still did not stop the memory of Konoha dragging him through the mud whenever they got the chance. Naruto stumbled over a piece of metal on the roof, forcing him to notice that Knuckledister had walked off near the highway section because it seemed that Koichi, Shoko, and Makoto were done for the day. But as Naruto looked down into the food court through the ceiling windows, he saw the one girl Iwa was looking for. His daughter. Naruto recognized her one-eyed look and her two energy signatures and grinned. But that turned into a frown when he noticed she was messing around on the phone. Everything's in place. Time for a surprise tour. Let's go. She cheered to herself and Naruto felt cold. Tour. The three were on a tour bus. This girl was deliberately targeting them now. Through their radio, Iwa shouted, "Kid, we have a runaway bus thanks to a triggered cat. It is like something out of a Studio Ghibli movie. Unfortunately, our own are in that bus." On my way. Naruto confirmed and then growled out in annoyance when the girl walked away and flashed him a smirk. She knew they were onto her. Just past you brat, pretty sure the B user knows we are onto her. A job confirming kid. Now call Pop. B is trapped on a runaway cat bus seriously. That guy's luck is the worst. Pop Step complained once she caught up to them. Yeah well, I have seen worse luck. Naruto deadpanned. Did you bring the feather duster and some duct tape as I asked? Yeah, but what are they going to be used for? Pop asked. He ain't, I am. What better way to direct a cat? Knuckledister said as he took the items to make a giant cat toy and haul ass to an intersection. He knew the cat would eventually go on and directed it to a construction zone. That is great and all, Naruto said as he and Pop Step caught up with him. But doesn't that bridge end because of construction? Yeah, and it seems that Ingenium and his crew are taking care of the passengers as we speak. Damn, that guy is fast. Knuckledister said with a huge smirk. Pop, see if you can help them in any way. I will fly around to the end to see if they missed anyone. Naruto said, summoning a giant eagle. This was twofold, to see how Koichi was handling this and to see if the mastermind behind all of this was going to check out the wreckage. As Naruto took off, Knuckledister's grin grew huge. That kid was good. Knuckledister followed Pop Step to the evacuation zone the heroes had set up as both a temporary base of operations and a medic zone which was slow going. But Pop Step was already in gear. Both Kazuho and him rushed to the scene as civilians to see if they could help. Iwa watched proudly as Koichi stood up to his over-worried mother so that he could go save someone that was still on the bus. His first guess was Makoto since she wasn't around. It had an effect on Shoko, though, and he walked up next to her and said, "You hurt, ma'am?" "Oh, Mr. Kuroiwa. I did not expect to see you here." Shoko said, her nerves messing with her as she started to panic. Her son was trying to be a hero after all. Seeing him like this though made her both worried and proud. So much so that she started to confess a bit. Wow. That boy of mine. He used to move through the air. As a baby, he started floating before he could even stand. There was no telling where he might float off to if left to his own devices. I was so worried that I gave a little smack each time in hopes of stopping him. I knew that there would be a time when a little spanking would not be enough to keep him down. Iwao took a moment to consider his next words. He was a bit peeved that this woman kept her son down all this time. Now he and Naruto just needed to help the boy find his wings. He thought about his own daughter and how he acted to push her away. A parent can worry all they like, but every kid's gotta fly sooner or later. All we can do is teach them how to fall right. I suppose you are right. Shoko replied somberly. Naruto turned off the phone and put it away just as he made it to the broken bridge and flew circles around it. He saw the bus and how Koichi and Ingenium were having trouble keeping pace. And out of the corner of his eyes, he saw Iwao's daughter. She was hiding and waiting. He wondered what that was about, but he would occasionally see bees near the old victims. Could they be multi-purpose? No time to dwell on that though because this was going to be tight. Ingenium rocketed toward Koichi and Makoto right as the bus went over the edge. Thankfully, they were out of the bus, but the momentum meant they were still going to fall. As fast as he was, Ingenium wasn't fast enough to get them both. Thankfully, out of sheer force of will, Koichi forced his quirk to boost him the rest of the way toward Ingenium's open arms. Knowing this was not going to last, he pushed Makoto over to him and let himself fall. I got you. Naruto shouted as he grabbed a hold of his friend and his giant eagle grabbed hold of Ingenium and Makoto. Hold on tight, we are not done. Huin smirked as she walked away from the scene, cat in hand as the construction workers completely ignored her in favor of the falling bus that crashed down in their area. She was going to get a sample from this little cat to see what Trigger did to it. It had been fascinating to see a simple cat take over a bus like that. However, as soon as she got to the fence and hopped it, a motorcycle got in her way. The eyes of Soga stared her down. End of the line. He said simply. Aw, are you still mad about me sicking Stendhal on you? Get over it, it was just business after all. Kuin replied smarmily. Actually yeah, but that is not why I am here. Soga replied. Then why are you here? Come to offer yourself up to more Trigger? I have more after all. No thanks, I was just called to stall you. Soga replied cheekily. What? Kuin screamed and then had to dodge a few falling objects. One of them was Ingenium himself, who looked confused as to why he was there. Actually, the same was true for the other things in Koichi and Makoto. Naruto soon landed his giant eagle, much to Kuin's horror. You thought you could get away, huh? Naruto asked as he hopped off the bird. Soga. Akatsuki, what is this about? Koichi asked nervously as he quickly got up to stand before Makoto protectively. That fact that Ingenium was nearby helped bolster his confidence. Yeah, what is this about kid, I am just a schoolgirl who found a stray cat. Kuin replied deceptively, hoping to get the hero to defuse the situation so her cover was not blown. However, the way Koichi was glaring at her did not help. That is simple. She is one of the dealers for Trigger and the one to cause this incident. Naruto stated, just putting this information out in the open. Tensei looked from the kid to the girl and then to Crawler, who looked tense. He knew something was up today, but he never expected this. However, he was out of juice. He would be no help. Are you sure about this kid? Do you have proof? I doubt that you can prove that I am. Kuin interjected with a slight smirk. I have unique abilities that let me know when something is up, Naruto confessed. And I am more observant than most people. The fact that bees are usually around to cause all of your Trigger BS is a major factor since I usually see strange bees around their victims. Some of them looked like they had containers full of blood. And let's not forget about the mass outbreak villains a few weeks ago, something many confirmed about seeing a lot of bees that day right before it all went down. Tensei's eyes widened in fear at that. Yeah, that had been something many confirmed that day, but all the civilians just brushed it off. Even more heroes, but there were some that did think it was odd. People like Eraserhead for one. That man has always been smart. But again, Tensei wouldn't be much help here. That is suspicious. And I remember seeing you do that so you could get that eel kid that messed with Pop Step's concert. Where is he? Naruto asked. From her position, Makoto thought this was a bit nerve-wracking. Especially right after the bus incident. She had already figured out that Koichi was the Crawler, something she heard Ingenium say. So that must mean that Akatsuki was that Naruto kid. Holy shit, this kid was intense. Hell, this whole day was intense. TSK, are you sure it was me who did all that? Yeah, I took a photo. You were the last person seen with him. Naruto said, showing off his phone, which had a photo of her and the boy. Well, it seems I wasn't as careful as I thought, Kuin replied after having a laugh, raising the tension. But what are you all going to do about it? You have a civilian who is running on adrenaline thanks to the bus incident and is soon to lose that, a hero who used up all his powers saving her, and the other useless vigilante. Everyone knows the crawler is a major pussy who glides and slides away and lets others do the fighting for him. That old man is not around and all I see is a little kid playing at being a hero. You can summon animals, big whoop. So you admit it, where is the kid? Naruto asked with a frown. I would worry less about him and more about yourself, kid. Kuin replied as she held up 2 fingers and then sparked with deadly electricity. This body was fun to use, but I think I will kill you and just walk away. And that kid, he will be free soon. The group tensed when they heard that. Body? Tensei asked, a bit confused. The B user is a separate entity, they are just using the girl as a puppet. A girl whose father is looking for her, I might add. Naruto commented. The user, are they long range because I don't see them? Tensei replied a bit nervously, this was not going well. This kid was in over his head. Oh, so he put you up to this. I will get him as well after I give him his dead daughter back. Kuin yelled out with a laugh. It did not matter to her that she was surrounded. They had no idea where she really was. I better make this a powerful shot so I can kill you and her at the same time. Prepare to die, you brat. As Kuin went to rush him, Naruto gave her a bored look, especially when 4 large tongues wrapped around her arms and legs, suspending her in midair. And the grip was so strong, it prevented Kuin from freeing herself with electricity. The others looked to see 4 large toads, 2 on the ground and 2 hanging from the concrete holding the road up. They were large, so how the hell did they miss that? Yeah, I might be young, but I am not here to play, Naruto replied evenly. If I wanted to fight, I could body everybody quickly on any day. However, I will not do that to my master's daughter. You can reveal yourself now, or I will force you out. Koichi blinked at that. He had no idea Knuckledister had a kid. That tale he spun with him the other day to get him out of trouble was partially true. Wow, that was clever. So their master knew Naruto's mom. Cool. Ha. You have no idea who or what I am. I would like to reveal that to you, kid. Kuin laughed. Hey, I tried to give you the peaceful option, Naruto replied with a shrug, and Ingenium wondered what the violent option was, especially when the kid just held his hand out and pointed it right at the girl. No way. Bansho Tenin. Naruto shouted, focusing on the secondary presence he could feel within the girl. That must be it. He also realized that he cued Ingenium in on his power, but this was an opportunity he could not refuse. Kuin screamed as she bucked her head. She could not believe this kid. He somehow knew that she was in the girl. How? She could ask that later if she survived because she felt herself being pulled out of the girl's eye socket. Barely even thinking anymore and relying more on instinct, she released her hold on the girl so that when she got out, she could easily get away. Normally, she would release herself upon her host's deaths, but this was urgent. Suddenly, a whole hive of bees was ripped out of the girl's eye socket and the last to come out was the queen bee's bloated form. It was actually pretty sickening to look at. Naruto frowned at all the bees. He had thought something different with them. Maybe more along the lines of usable power like that of emitters. But actual bees made this problematic. He was still working on a few Hyuga techniques that could solve this, but this would have to work. This and the pre-top path. Oh boy, good thing he learned about the special kind of bug zappers that could attract bees. This is going to hurt. Naruto said to himself as he let go of his gravity hold on the queen and focused on his pre-top path. He screamed as his clothes were shredded and he focused his pre-top path to turn his body into a giant bug zapper. Forcing the change on a wide area of the body hurt like hell, but he wasn't going to let others get hurt because of his own miscalculation. Antennae protruded from his body and sparked with electricity of his own, plus ejectors that produced a special scent that attracted bees were released to make them come to him. Naruto jumped onto the queen and proceeded to electrocute the creature, and as he did, he spun in place. Arg. Hyuga bug zapper. Naruto screamed out as he killed the bees, some of which still managed to sting him. He tried to do the Hyuga rotation, but that wasn't really going to work today. Holy shit. Naruto. Koichi screamed for his friend, forgetting to use his code name, but no one was paying attention to that. That looked painful, even for the user. Off to the side, Ingenium was calling for backup to the side, and he looked fearful for the kid. When the light show ended, Naruto fell to the ground, panting hard in both pain and the chakra loss. He didn't account for the chakra loss because that had used an almost lethal amount, since he had never done that before. Using the pre-top path was extremely draining, and he felt his vision go dark. Heh, stupid overachieving kid, Knuckledister replied softly as he made it down to them when he saw the light show. Now he really owed him for saving his daughter. It looked like Naruto had burned himself a bit to save everyone. Ingenium, I will take the kid. I do not want him to get in trouble for using his quirk. I know that girl, she is Tamaoguro. Make sure her father knows she is safe. Tensei Ida looked ready to lose it after what he saw. However, he understood the need for secrecy. Right, then get him out of here. I will take Crawler, his friend, and the girl back to my team. Good luck. He did not like it, but the kid needed to go. Now. Iwa didn't want to leave his daughter alone, but her savior needed saving. Ingenium was a good kid. He could trust him. Picking up Naruto, he ran away to get him some medical care. Pop Step jumped in soon after with a worried look on her face. So what do you think? I may have taken some creative liberty and saved Iwa the trouble of nearly dying in his fight against the Queen Bee during the music festival. Please comment below. For the next part, click on this video. And I will see you all there.